Hey guys, it's Matt. Thank you for being patient and waiting for this presentation. This will not be my last presentation, but if it were going to be my last, I think I would be satisfied with my contribution to whatever we're trying to do here, whatever we're trying to figure out here and trying to figure out for ourselves. Although I plan to be doing this a long time, at least until the next eclipse. This is not a 1.25 speed exercise at all. Collecting information at 1.25 speed actually tells you something about where you are in your own personal pursuit of truth. Are you in the information collecting stage process, or are you ready to apply things to yourself, your spiritual self? It's a total difference in mindset. One is like learning times tables in school. Have to collect information, times tables, ABCs, vocabulary rules. That's a 1.25 information mindset. The other is a much slower process. It's a full comprehension of ideas and applying them to spiritual self. Absolutely not a 1.25 process. One of the reasons I put this presentation together is I'm just so tired of people in this truth community, people I generally like and I know are trying, I know are on our side, but it's so simple, the terms they present it in. It's just, we're getting screwed and this evil cabal is making all this moves to screw us. It's just us guys over here and these bad guys over here. It's so much more complicated than that. Now, what we need to do for ourselves, if we just move aside from everything, is very simple. Like I've said, it's a half page. But that's not the purpose of this presentation. This presentation is more about step 2, understanding the nature of the reality itself. I mean, I like these truth channels, but it's not these bad guys over here, these bad cabal members over here, or societies, and they're just screwing us over here. It's so much more complicated than that. Are there bad guys and bad actors? Of course there are. Of course there are. This is on Free Voice, so I can say Bill Gates and hundreds and thousands of different types of minions, but they're just one small facet and actually being used and played themselves as to what is going on here. So most of the people here are not first grade. I'm just, completely at the point where I'm moving beyond any truth channel that explains things away by just regular means, things that you can just understand between your bookends, or just this group of bad guys and the evil cabal and the evil secret societies. They're just trying to screw us. That's just first grade stuff, and have to tie in the much larger elements related to the broad brush term of spiritual battle. With that being said, I'll begin. We need to observe what the reality itself, as this presentation goes on, that will be better defined, although it will always remain a bit vague, what the reality itself does to a human being if you move backward in time and forward in time, using specific examples. No conclusions here, just a way of thinking about things to start. For example, my mother has been right next to a fox. Their grandfather was a fox hunter. She has observed a fox, if not alive, dead, right up close, probably touched it, etc. Her grandparents, for example, going back through time, ate fox. Going forward in time, I've seen a fox run through a golf course or at a distance. Very rare. The next generation after me potentially will have never seen a fox. Okay. Apply this to almost anything. Greg, my friend, knows how to do a lot of things. Can rebuild an engine, a 1985 Oldsmobile. Going back through time, his grandfather, he describes, could do almost anything, could build anything, could weld anything, could woodwork anything. Go forward in time, you have Greg again, what he can do with small engines and things like that. His son can play video games. And the way they build cars today, you can't even work on them yourself. Example number 2. Final example. This relative of mine grew up on a farm. His parents then, grandparents, were farmers. They grew their own food, milk, cattle, etc. He never did that, but he was able to reap the benefits of being raised on a farm. Ate fresh fruits and vegetables, real milk, even non-pasteurized, etc. So going forward in time, his children were not able to reap those benefits. They were eating similar foods, but foods that came through the grocery store that have now been GMO, genetically changed, quote, enhanced, but that's probably a misnomer. They've been reduced. Now, these examples could go on forever. Nobody wants me to continue these examples forever. The point is, observe how, I'll say it again in this way and explain it later, the reality itself moves a human being away from its natural self or the natural order of things. Now, most people down the cul-de-sac or your friends and neighbors and family think this is just the way a modern society naturally evolves. Oh, it's just progress. It's just the natural way of things in a large society of hundreds of millions of people, Matt. Don't you know that? I'm saying absolutely not. Everything we observe and the types of examples I gave is a human being being moved away from its true nature and away from, quote, Mother Nature. There are thousands of these types of examples. I'm saying it's all absolutely by design, not the natural evolution of things. And we finally have absolute proof that this is going on in imperceptible ways most people don't understand, because I don't know if you've heard the stories, the millions of people that have taken to hiking and nature and kayaking, like millions of people around the world. And it's not just because they have nothing to do because they're locked down. Pam never hiked in the past. Now, 2, 3, 4 times a week, hiking groups. She said in 2020, from April through June or something, you couldn't buy a kayak. Every kayak sold out. Every park where you can take a boat onto a lake, triple, quadruple the amount of people that were there 2 years ago. People are responding to a massive move on the chessboard, which is out to separate a human being from its true nature, its true spiritual self. People are responding to that in ways they're not even consciously aware of, by trying to return and grasp on to nature, which in a way they're holding on to their true essence. And this explains all the hiking and nature trails and biking and kayaking. And if you asked one of these people, are you doing all this kayaking? You're kayaking now 3 times a week when you never were interested in that just 2 years ago. Are you trying to hold on to the last bit of your spiritual self before this system ultimately, in what's playing out now on steroids, attempts to flush it? They would think you're absolutely mad. But we can sense that's exactly what's happening. When spiritual self is being ripped away, all people's first reaction innately, in ways they don't even understand, will be to return to nature. And I can hear the first level or first grade truthers crying out in the night. I was there myself at one point. Things like, well, there's nothing else to do, Matt. Everyone's locked down. That explains all the hiking and biking in nature. Or the Agenda 21, Matt. You know about the bike paths and the open space. Agenda 21, Agenda 30, Matt. Moving everyone into the cities. I can hear the first grade truthers crying out in the night. I was there once. Because this presentation is so long and not everybody has the time to go through it maybe now in deciding if you want to return to it, the summary is, we live in a world that behaves in supernatural fashion beyond anything most people can comprehend. Okay? Supernatural fashion, not known understanding that makes sense between your reality bookends. Somehow, some way, reality shows people who investigate its nature what they expect to find. Let me repeat that. It's the event horizon reality concept that we've been talking about the last few videos presented in this presentation. Somehow reality shows people who investigate its true nature what they expect to find. The reality itself has a bag of tricks it employs, seemingly for one reason: to keep a human being away from understanding its true nature. Like an AI, not saying it's AI, like an AI, it learns, and it has honed its skill almost to perfection. It's a master at getting a real person to cut spiritual ties with itself, and instead have that person choose to root and attach to it, IT, information technology, maybe. We don't have to understand its true nature. I know that 10% of the truth community is dug in about this is some sort of AI. It certainly may be, and it acts that way. This journey is about understanding yourself, okay? Not understanding what Westworld truly is. So I do present the following that's coming up as if reality itself is alive, for lack of better words. You've heard me talk about this before. I don't know any other way to say it. This understanding of how it operates through its assholes, through its minions, like Melvin P. Gates. I know I can say Bill Gates and this is free voice, but whatever that creature is, it doesn't even deserve me to use its real name or whatever it was labeled with, the way your dog would get a collar coming out of the kennel. So it's always going to be Melvin P. to me. And yeah, in their little fiefdom, in big fish in a tiny little pond, where Matt Damon lapped up the muddy water and the hoof print, oh, they are powerful here. But if you back up far enough away, they're the most pathetic things of all time. Gigantic fish in a tiny little hoof print pond. And ultimately, if you back up far enough, they're used and abused more than probably any other group here, playing their little role as the power-hungry people that pull the reality buttons and levers here. Yeah, they're making gains on a lot of the regular people that are missing the boat and not discovering or understanding who they truly are. But they ain't going to get us. Regarding the elements of truth research, for about 2 years now, I've been saying the who, what, when, where, and how were pointless to research. Completely pointless. Now, this has been absolutely proven true from the point I alluded to this or said this about 2 years ago. But however, I want to remind everybody, the why element can be important. Investigating the why they do certain things to us or why they want certain things from you. It can be important, the why, in telling us something about ourselves that we don't already recognize. We should recognize these things by now. But if not, look to the why are they doing that and what do they want from me? And what does that tell you about yourself? Most of YouTube is the other elements. Oh, what is the cabal doing over here? What's the who, what, when, where, and how of it? And if the why is researched, it's not about telling somebody about their true nature. So that's pointless anyway in most of the way the truth channels and the truth community does business. So we learned this 2 years ago, but still people still haven't learned their lesson. Not only are the elements not important at all, examining the elements and spending your time examining them in research is playing into exactly what, quote, the reality wants and is what is it's designed to do to us with the breadcrumbs that it is flavored exactly for us. I'm convinced all of these breadcrumbs associated with the elements are placed into reality supernaturally, or if you prefer, artificially, to attract our attention. Okay, it's supernatural means. And that's what this presentation will finally demonstrate. And we all have to get our heads out of our asses and move forward. So a main part of this presentation is asking you to make a decision. Are you going to explain everything that's been pulled off, every sinister plot, as just things that we can understand the way the world works, reality and the known reality within our bookends, people calling people, people faxing people? Are you going to hold on to that? Or are you finally ready to let it go? And my side of the crazy asylum basically says the reality itself is alive in some way, operating through its minions, and there's a whole host of artificial and supernatural means it employs outside of our perception to get things done. To me, if you've looked at enough things, this is almost obvious at this point. So the concepts that follow is basically a major fork in the road for your own investigations. Will you cling to the notion that the world is only able to behave as, say, a science book says it must, and everything that occurs must happen inside a person's bookends of known reality and inside these things called the laws of physics? See, they've laid that out for us our entire lives. Or is it finally time to let that go? Dorothy, walking on the yellow brick road, when she was walking on the yellow brick road, she believed it was completely real and was operating inside that understanding, because what other reality could exist? She's really there with a Tin Man and a scarecrow, and the Wizard of Oz says you got to go get the witch's broom for me. I've got to go do that. What if she allowed her mind to understand, or at least take in other possibilities? See, then some things would have gone differently for Dorothy. Now, all the normies do this, but for the most part, up to very recently, almost all the truth community just acts like the normie. They limit themselves in applying as an immutable rule in truth that everything must fit inside consensus understanding of known reality. It's just things have to be in line with our own limited perceptions and senses. But can you see how a notion like this, for example, a notion put forth to a collective consciousness that nothing can travel faster than light, and that being ingrained and drilled in you from the moment you open your first science textbook, nothing can travel faster than light. You see how that can destroy the creativity needed to truly figure things out? Things like, quote, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, to me, is an Einstein ball and chain to limit true creativity. Then you supposedly have these smart people running around trying to find out the true nature of things, but it's been grained into them that Einstein could not be wrong because it's been delivered as if it has to be an immutable truth. So let me get this straight. A being, this guy Albert Einstein, he sits on the pot just like everyone else. He can take in, just like you and me, not even 1% of the sensory perception needed through the senses to understand his full universe. He takes in less than 1%. Like you see a little tiny visible spectrum and you miss like 40 million frequencies to the left and 40 million frequencies to the right, and gamma rays, X-rays, and ultraviolet and infrared and all that. So this being that takes in less than 1% sensory perception, he's declared this as a universal rule that everybody accepts. Okay? See how that could be a little bit of a problem in figuring things out if you rely on these things as immutable truths, and on all the other things we rely on in trying to understand how the reality works, proclaiming nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. How does he know? Because he crunched some math on a freaking chalkboard? Get out there and run with the speed of light. See what it is yourself, you jerk. About the same time in South America, this was going on when Einstein was making his proclamations. An ant, got up on a rock and proclaimed that I proclaim a decree, an ant nation, there can be nothing heavier in the universe than this river rock. And that limited the ants' ability to understand their world around them. See how it works? So that's probably what the guy Einstein was designed to do. What the reality designed him to do was screw us into limited thought. And how many other examples do we have of this? All right? Was Einstein in on it? Did he get secretly invited to the back room and says, "Here, I'm Jared here. We'll take care of your needs. Would you like tea?" No, he's not in on it. He was probably pushed to the forefront. Like Spike Lee is pushed to the forefront. Like these people are pushed to the forefront that proclaim and put forth exactly what the reality wants in keeping people away from understanding truly what's going on, and then ultimately it never wants you to find out the nature of your true self. That's why all these conservative programs and Alex Jones and all these animal farms give away tons and tons of truth. They're just giving away information. They're not giving you anything you can apply to yourself. And as a reminder, one of the main premises here is the reality. Okay, I keep talking about it as if it's some sort of entity. It's much higher on the org chart than its little minions like Melvin P. It has unnatural means, supernatural means it employs. Now, people that are Mandela affected, I don't have to convince them of anything, but I have to speak because in a way that most people are not Mandela affected. When someone sees reality change right before their very eyes overnight or in an instant, I don't need to go out of my way to convince those people. But I will have to try a little bit harder on everybody else. But let's just open your mind. Quaid, grab Quado's arms and open your mind. The amount just related to Einstein. Okay, I don't have exactly what Einstein's role in carrying forth what, quote, the reality wanted to deliver on human beings figured out. But one thing that's always been unnatural to me, just hear me out, no more, no less. The amount of times that picture of Einstein with his tongue out comes up is unnatural to me. Okay, I don't know exactly what that means, but when I was at Penn State, there were people that had the posters. That poster is shown in a lot of movies. You've seen it many, many times. Now think about it. think about it. Is it? Let's just say you kind of like Albert Einstein, or you're into that type of science, and who would? I mean, that picture should have never circulated outside 4 or 5 deranged people that want to see an old, ugly man sticking his tongue out. In other words, that picture, I've seen it hundreds of times. That's unnatural to me, in a way that tells me Einstein fulfills a major goal of this reality, how it just keeps being pushed to the forefront. If you've not seen that picture as much as me, I'll move on as quickly as I can. You don't know what I'm talking about. But for the amount of times if you've never seen it, it's just so disgustingly ugly, this old man sticking his tongue out. And I know what it's about. Oh, even Einstein, who's the smartest man of all time, even he can have fun. And no, it's unnatural to me. Is it the reality marker that 33 is? No, but I kind of sniff it's something like that. But let's just move on. People limiting their understanding of reality to their perception, their own senses, and say what a science book says can or cannot happen, for example, leads to a lot of problems. For example, why so many people believe, or everybody but a few crazies in our wing of the asylum, believe that the solar eclipse is a rock in space moving in front of a burning ball. And that's something that's exploding hydrogen and helium, and this rock moves in front. And, they're perfect fit, of course. That's just random. That's just a coincidence. So everyone is forced into that explanation because they've been taught their entire lives not to think for themselves. Anybody, like maybe the way Schwarzenegger was taken off to that island in Twins, he was taught to think for himself. Maybe somebody like that, 1 out of a billion people, might be like, there's no way that's what the eclipse is. But everybody else, he just goes along with what you're force-fed. What else could it be? They ask, what else could it be? 99% of people are not able to ever comprehend, that it could be, the eclipse could be something else. To me, a rock, big round rock that's floating in front of a burning thing that just happened to be, from your perception, the exact same size. Oh my God. Oh yeah, I know, 400 times larger, Matt. 400 times farther. Oh yeah, I know, what a coincidence that is. I'd sooner believe Tom and Jerry brought forth the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. I mean, give me a break. I no longer believe in 1 in a trillion odds. That's what it would take for the moon to go right in front of the sun and they have them exactly fit on top of each other, like 2 pancakes that came out of the same pancake maker. 1 in a trillion. I don't buy those odds, but most people do. If somebody then asks me, then they say, the normie has the script that they run. It's called "Take Me to the Last Page of the Book" or "Show Me the Story's End." And if you can't, your crazy conspiracy theories will be shot down. If you can't explain all of it, they'll say, "What is it then, Matt? The eclipse?" And I would say back, well, why do I have to know what it is? By my heel, I know not what it is. I don't have to know what it is, but I can tell you what it's not. It's not what this textbook says. That's absurd. I don't believe in 1 in a trillion coincidences. I can no more understand it fully than a gecko can lead a symphony orchestra. That's fine. I'm allowed to use the eclipse to understand something about this place via the notion of understanding first what it's not, which limits me, like Einstein saying nothing can go faster than the speed of light. That's why a lot of the science shit is put out. It limits a human being into thinking inside its box. Then once I can get out of that box, I can understand more about this place, what it truly is, the wondrous nature of it, and then I can understand something about myself. The reality's structured so people don't find out anything about themselves. But the eclipse is such an incredible, wondrous thing. It is one of the first areas where the rare human that thinks, the rare breed of thinking person, is finally able to leave a little bit of their known understanding behind, or just kind of venture a little bit outside of their bookends. The eclipse has done that with a lot of people, because it's just so wondrous that some people are just forced to think a little bit differently. But we find in our pursuit of truth, we find that most things in this place, the true nature of them, in my opinion, lie outside the bookends. I'm tossing my bookends out permanently. To me, there are no answers inside them, no answers. And ultimately, this is a step 2 presentation about the reality. It's not as important as jumping to step 3, understanding yourself. But they put the entire world, whatever it is, however they put the entire world, whatever they are. I was going to say they put the entire world in a mask. in 6 weeks over something where only a tiny percentage of the world's population has been severely impacted. The entire Western world, at least, and then the entire world in a mask if you want to go out to 10 weeks. You had police officers, traffic cops in Mumbai, India, with coronavirus helmets. I mean, this is not possible. The way they pull this shit off is not possible in a real world unless these weird artificial supernatural means to get things done are being employed. This is where I am. My bookends are gone. I've never gone back inside them. After all we've seen, people still think it's possible that all this, something 1,000 times larger than 9/11, is being pulled off by guys and girls plotting on dark leather couches. What? I'll never be able to convince you of anything if something 1,000 times larger than 9/11 just being pulled off by guys and girls plotting on their dark leather couches. Now, we've seen an inhuman level of coordination many times before, CV. I mean, this isn't new, inhuman coordination, but not to this extent, but we've seen it. Inhuman, supernatural means. No way it can be explained inside the bookends of known reality the way they've pulled many of these big events off. The 9/11 event by itself is an inhuman level of coordination, and it has several reality breakdowns thrown in to boot. It's like watching your Whopper disappear in your hands and then vehemently standing up and proclaiming that this place is still a regular Burger King. Your Whopper just disappeared from your hands, dude. This is a regular Burger King, and I'm going to stick to that. What? How much do you need to see? You need your fries to disappear too? CV is 1,000 times larger than 9/11, but to many, it's still guys and girls plotting on leather couches. So if all that makes sense to you is just the evil cabal plotting everything on their leather couches, that's all. You got to just keep running back to that. At least imagine it happening in like the set of Underworld, that the bottom of the Vampire Coven, and Jared Kushner comes in to serve tea. At least imagine that. It makes it a little darker, believable that the guys and girls in the leather couches are pulling everything off. Victor comes in and is, Celine, you have very much disappointed me. This coven has grown weak. At least, imagine that if you want to. But I'm kind of beyond that. Even a good segment of the truth community will employ the normie psychological defense mechanism of show me the story's end, take me to the last page of the book. Well, what is it then, Matt? What is it? I don't know. I don't need to know. I don't care to know. I just need to care to know more about myself. It could be an AI, could be a reality overlay, some sort of matrix. I know it has artificial means at its disposal. That's all I need to know. I don't need to care. I don't care. I don't need to know anymore. I need to spend 80,000 hours researching if it's the Westworld supercomputer, AI, this and that. Who cares? It's tendencies, noticing what it wants from a human being. That's all that's important. Let's come to an understanding on this. We will never truly understand its underlying governing dynamics, how all the gears and mechanisms work. We don't need to. It's, the tendencies, and then we can use its tendencies to predict its nature and then shield ourselves. That's all that matters. Somebody, Matt, no, everything has to happen inside my understanding of things as I learned in school. Yeah, just like a symphony must be composed in line with the parameters of what a duck can understand. What's truly going on here is not compatible with our senses. It's limited to the 100th power. Our brain power in this avatar is just nothing. It's limited to no. This is just what this life experience is. Stop relying on senses and brain power. The only thing that can be relied on is feeling, inner knowing, attaching to truth, attaching to information that comes from somewhere else. That's all we have. I mean, that is all. And even that, of course, is just the reality just tries to cut ties with our ability to tap into that, of course. But, senses. Watch a movie and then watch the movie again with the sound completely off. See how different it is with just removing one sense. You've done this. Watch it with the sound off. You notice things in the back. You see things in a different way. You see people behaving. And this is just when you just cut off one sense. Reality knows how to put all this together so it gets a human being to believe exactly what it wants. This is why liberal PhD educated, big liberal PhD education, somebody that would frame all their diplomas, and Atlantic magazine readers. They're the stupidest people in the world in terms of understanding anything that's truly important. In terms of understanding the X's and O's of their job, they're real smart. They can tell you all about the political structure of the left. just nonsense. Yeah, they're real smart in all of the ways society will award them with accolades and appreciation and blue ribbons and diplomas. But in terms of understanding anything real, it's like the way the kid talked about Forrest Gump. They're the stupidest people in the world, these highly educated left-wingers. They've been awarded a useless scarecrow certificate for using their senses and brain in the way the reality wants them to, and it will reward them for it as exceptional drones inside the hive mind. Now, if you didn't get anything in the entire first section, all you need is this. The world isn't very real. Well, what is it? You don't need to know. It just will play games to try to remove you from understanding who you truly are. And it does it in a supernatural fashion with means and reality buttons and levers we don't understand. It plays games. It wants you to try to figure it out, but we're not going to play that game anymore. Homie, don't play that, trying to figure it out anymore. It's not very real. That's all we need to know. And then protect the true nature of who you really are. Let's switch gears. There's a common theme in movies where the main character or the protagonist of the movie has been so beaten up and so abused for so long in the movie that they kind of get to the point where they just don't give a shit anymore. And they're ready to face their fear and fight back even in some movies. The most important point is they're ready to face their fear, then the fear is actually removed. This is a theme that repeats just all over the place. Okay? Talked about it a few times recently. We'll do it one more time because this is the formal presentation. Jumanji. Robin Williams is hunted by the hunter of Jumanji, who strangely is his father in the real world. He's tired of running, turns around to face the rifle head on. He's so beaten up, he has no more fear. The fear is gone. He's had enough. He doesn't give a shit anymore. That's kind of one way to put at it. Sometimes you don't give a shit, then the fear drops. They're related in some way. But the dice has dropped and is rolling. But he doesn't get Jumanji. That dice does not stop rolling. Doesn't roll Jumanji to win the game until he has completely overcome his fear with the hunter. Then the dice stops rolling Jumanji. And he's playing the game with the young girl who later is that actress, that woman. She also does the same thing. It's very subtle with her. She jumps in front of him almost to save him from the bullet. So she has faced her fear as well. Again, the message is very clear. No way he rolls to wins in this case Jumanji, without absolutely overcoming his fear via that last act of defiance. He doesn't go running at the hunter and strangle him and put a kitchen knife up into the hunter. No, that's probably what the reality wants. He just simply overcomes it. Okay, it's doubtful that the popcorn crunching audience will link these two things, the winning of Jumanji with the final roll and overcoming fear. But it's pretty obvious to us. Okay, and this theme is very common in movies, and it's presented in different ways. Okay, well, anybody, I'm not going to go do a 20-minute sidebar, but we know universal truths flow through art. Inserted note: in making this presentation, Greg calls me, my original confidant who keeps me sane and helps me through some of these issues. Timestamp 33.3. And then timestamp. Yeah, maybe a coincidence. We see this reality marker come up more and more, as well as all the other reality markers. Okay, the movie Predator. All right, the movie Predator. Billy, the Native American in the movie Predator. Remember, the guy says, Billy, you know something. What is it? That's pretty bad. But in the jungle, Schwarzenegger's team is getting picked off one by one. There's this predator in the trees. The fear is building. The anxiety is building. The stress is building. And the notion of, what is around the next corner? The next attack, who's it going to take? And it's building and building and building. And Billy just kind of turns around and says, it's like the end of Jumanji. He's like, I'm just going to face it. Pulls his knife out. He drops his gun even. He's just going to face it head on. Well, sure, it doesn't go well for Billy. We hear his screams in the background. He's probably impaled But, hey, it is a movie. It wouldn't be much of a movie if Billy that was able to beat the Predator at that point, just leaving Arnold nothing to do but pack up all the gear for the chopper. Pack up the gear for the chopper. It wouldn't be much of a movie. But what did Billy do? And again, maybe you don't love this example, but there's thousands of these types of examples. It's just a repeating theme that flows through art that I ask you to notice. The girl fighting Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, which I guess a couple videos back I called Friday the 13th, but you know what I meant. She eventually just gets pissed and turns to face him and says, "Who sewed that sweater, dude? You in an ugly sweater contest?" The end of the movie Revolver. It's the same way. Jason Statham in Revolver. We'll talk about that in a minute or two. Rocky III, Clubber Lang. That big speech on the beach, all about fear. Are you sure you want to fight him? And what's the matter with you? Adrian's bitching him out on the beach, and I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid, Adrian. It's all about fear. Overcoming fear is the main theme of Rocky III times 100. It flows through art. This is our test right now. Look at Luke in Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, to Yoda. I'm not afraid. You will be. You will be. Yeah. So why will be he afraid? He will be afraid, but then he will overcome it. He absolutely did overcome it. Luke, you will take me to your master now. The end of Labyrinth, the movie Labyrinth. Oh, okay. It's similar to Revolver. Well, the movie's not similar in any way, but this theme, of course, is similar. Jennifer Connelly, I don't know if she's like 16 or something, to the Goblin King, David Bowie. Then she's like, she has the power in her. She says, "You have no power over me." She caused the trouble in the beginning Goblin King couldn't get her little brother. She had to say it. She had to screw herself. She had the power to screw herself. Goblin King couldn't just come in and take that kid. She did it to herself, but then she fixed it herself. She says, "You have no power over me." And once he realizes that she really means it, David Bowie has no power to compose good music again, and goes off and does horrendous stuff like Black Star and Lazarus, and then fakes his death. But that was the alternative ending of Labyrinth. The end of The Neverending Story, much better movie in terms of that sort of Jim Henson style stuff. Neverending Story, it's a similar type ending with the nothing and what the wolf represents. That wolf represents is the minions on behalf of the nothing. The reality itself beats a human being down on all sides at the surface level, but the meanings that flow through art and media continuously remind real people who can be open to the message, remind real people how powerful he or she really is. That's why step 3 is a half a page. And guys, if you want to take a 1-minute mental break with me before we move on, continue this theme with movies, just a Labyrinth, it's sick. It really is kind of a sick. It has its funny little parts with its Jim Henson characters. Some of the characters or puppets are really clever, but it is not. It's a really creepy movie. David Bowie running around holding this baby as the Goblin King. He has then kind of stolen away her brother because she decreed, it's the stepbrother. She kind of hated the kid for a moment as the stepbrother that got all the attention. And she's like, "I wish the Goblin King would just take him away." Of course, the Goblin King then, because she's all powerful, real human being, shows up. David Bowie takes the baby, but he's like holding this baby through half the movie in these, I don't even want to say it, these tight pants. It's really inappropriate. And I do not recommend the movie. Whatever truth is available in it, I've taken away. I watch this crap so you don't have to. The Neverending Story, completely different. Much, very, very excellent movie. And truth all over it. The Neverending Story regarding, the kids type puppet stuff. Okay, I realize this is out there. But if I'm wrong, it's just an exercise in thinking big. An exercise in potentially seeing truth in places where people would normally think never to look. So either way, it's good to go through this. If there wasn't a chance, I wouldn't be presenting it. But you start to get a sniff or a sense as to how the reality itself does business. So I know it's out there. Why is Gone with the Wind potentially the most famous ending in movie history? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I'm not going to try to do that one. Throughout the movie, Scarlet, Vivian Lee, it was, yeah. She never changes her true nature. Scarlet, the name Scarlet, okay? She's always the same kind of conniving bitch, you know? She's never genuine. She's always playing angles. She's always worried about materialism and an estate called Tara and her social place. She never changes. Now, Rhett's rich. Rhett Butler's rich, too, but you never see him in the movie giving really a shit about his money or coveting it or ever worrying about it. It was a totally different things going on here. Now, I know it's a stretch, but could Scarlet, her endless games, disloyalty, constant nonsense and distraction be a metaphor for reality itself? Think about it. Rhett, this is like a Jumanji event coming up here. Rhett finally reaches a point, not where he has to face his fear. It's a little different, of course, but it's a Jumanji breaking point. He no longer gives a shit. He's ready to cut ties, finally ready to walk away, walk out of the life game with his reality, Scarlet. Cut ties and attachment with Scarlet. Why is her name Red? You know, I don't know. You know, I don't know all about the alchemical symbolism and all this, but this is just the way, you know, whenever I do know one thing, guys, whenever there's a gigantic moment in what's presented to us as our life or our history, the biggest of the big things all carry a dual meaning. You know, this is the biggest or most widely known ending in movie history, and I just can't imagine there's not something embedded in it. So when we watch the scene, we know Rhett's done with her. He'll have no regrets. He won't ever beg to come back. He's completely done. He won't miss his reality, Scarlet. He won't miss her anymore. He's just done with it. You know, he won't write her letters to get her back. It's not exactly a Jumanji moment, but it's similar, and it's a similar theme that I think comes through art of the human being being done with the reality, ready to just walk out of the game. All attachment, you know, see through it, want no part of it. And, you know, this relates back to the Jacob Marley chains, the ties that bind, the change we form in life may give it, or whatever it is, more of an ability to, you know, put forth the samsara, recycle a human being back into another reincarnation. I mean, I haven't done a lot of Buddhist investigation. Somebody sent me 2 books that I'm reading, and I'm very appreciative of that, a friend in Texas. And, you know, I'm hoping, I maybe haven't come to the parts yet, but it's just never-ending rebirth, never-ending rebirth, never-ending. What about, will this book present a real strategy for walking out? I mean, was that only obtained through becoming Buddha? Now I'll keep doing my research, and I have hundreds of pages left. But, you know, what's the skeleton key to break the cycle? You know, and I think that the message does come through a lot of art. So a lot of this presentation is exploring the formula of what state a human being has to put itself in, you and me. So we don't have any Jacob Marley change, so it can't grab onto something and recycle us back. Or this, you know, I don't put a lot of stock in this Saturn moon matrix fear something and fear pushing. It just might be another way. It just sounds like the same old, different spin on the reincarnation, something that goes back thousands of years in Vedic or Hindu religions. It's nothing new. It's just a little fear spin, Saturn moon matrix. If there is a formula for not having any its ability, it's like pouring grease all over yourself. It's its ability, whatever the reality itself is, to have you come back in another life, or if you truly want to leave. The overcoming fear thing is a big thing, in my opinion. Cutting all ties with it, making sure you're not carrying invisible Jacob Marley chains. I mean, the Buddhists would talk about the release of karma, of course. Karma and what regrets will bring you back. But again, what I'm going to do in this presentation, and hopefully over the next months or years, is there a certain formula, and what do we notice the message coming out of movies? So this ties in a formula a human being can put themselves in. That's maybe a little bit more complicated than click your heel 3 times and you'll be back, but I don't know. Maybe there's absolute metaphysical truth in that. I assure you, it's not just about click your heels 3 times and it's some cute little story. There's truth in that, no doubt about it. I don't know if we'll get to that here. But the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake comes to mind. A scene in Time. It's a very interesting movie. They trade in time that keeps you alive as currency. And it's absolutely the first hour is worth seeing. Once you see the first hour, then they run from the authorities and it just kind of gets stupid. But it's very interesting, the first hour. But the most interesting part to me is the scene, I think it's in the first 15 minutes or so. You lock in your looks at age 26, but some people are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. The rich and upper class have access to all this time, and they keep it in their arm, and the numbers are embedded in their arm, like the way the Luciferianese, all that ridiculous nonsense was talked about. Like they're really going to use something that, come on, talk about the truth community just have it running around having its head up its ass. They're really going to present something to the masses that they're going to put Luciferianese, some sort of mark under the skin. Come on, dude. Fall for this bull crap all the time. But anyway, it's what it's like. It's like this coding. And Justin Timberlake showed this guy. They all look 26. They're all good-looking people. But he's like, I don't know what he was like 150 years old or something. I forget. And he looks just like a really good-looking 26 or 27-year-old guy. And Justin Timberlake is more of like he's from a poor neighborhood. His time will get down to just a few days where he's, on his wrist, it shows he just has a day left to live. Then from working, the work pays him in currency. They put 2 more weeks of life back on his arm and his chip or whatever. But the point is, in terms of walking out of the reality, the old guy who's 120 or 150, when Justin Timberlake's sleeping, he gives him all his time. And there's a conversation. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie where the guy's basically like, I've had enough. Like, it's the attitude of I've done all I wanted to do. I've seen all I want to see. I have no more covet of this place, no more ties. I've come to a certain point. I just want to die. He gives all his time away, and I guess he sits on the edge of a bridge or something, and he sees the clock embedded in his wrist and the Luciferianese in his wrist tick down. And he just dies. But complete acceptance of it, wanting of it. There's nothing about the world anymore. He coveted. Maybe I should just hang around and get that new sports car, or relationships, or karma. That is a big message, in my opinion. And the movie is called In Time. It's about time, and just goes along with that Jumanji. Jumanji is facing the fear, overcoming the fear. This scene is more about just having no more ties, just wanting no more part of nothing the greasy fingers of the reality can hold on to. I would say this guy in the movie In Time has a chance of getting out of here, and to try to tie it together. And I know this is a conspiracy, a wing of the asylum stretch, I know, but to tie it potentially back into Gone with the Wind, if Scarlet, it represents the reality. Red he's walked out on her, and he wants no more part of it. It does relate to that scene In Time with me. It is part of the formula that for a human being to move themselves into before the day of their life or the day of their death. We'll talk about it one more time. The end of Jason Statham, I think his name is, in Revolver, with Ray Liotta, who can only play one character, the same type of gangster bad guy. Talk about typecasting. He's screaming, fear me, because Jason Statham has feared him, I guess, the entire movie. But then he just overcomes it. He's not afraid of Jason. Statham's not afraid of Ray Liotta anymore. And Ray Liotta is just like the reality itself. He's saying, no, you must fear me, screaming at him. It's actually, I believe the Ray Liotta characters represents an aspect of the Jason Statham character or of his psyche, but that's neither here nor there. In this example, it's like, the reality just screaming that the individual is not giving it what it wants, and he's overcome it. It's a Jumanji moment at the end of Revolver, which is a pretty interesting movie. And this theme is all over the place. How many horror movies end with the people who were running for their lives? At the end, they just turn to face it, or they face the evil or the stalker, or they eventually win. They just turn and face it. It comes up over and over and over again. Vin Diesel, I'm sure that's his real name too. I'd like to see his birth certificate. Vin Diesel. His scene in Triple X, where the diner scene. I don't. I could probably go back to this one too much. People screaming at me, Matt. It's just a diner scene in an action shoot 'em up movie. Maybe, but I use this one. He says, I don't play this game, man. It's all fake. The whole environment, the diner, it's all crafted. It's not a real waitress. The reality, it's fake. This person's not a real stockbroker. They're reading the Wall Street, an old Wall Street Journal doesn't even come out on a Sunday. He's like, this whole environment's fake. I do take away a bit of a truth drop there. I really do. This stuff, in my opinion, can come out through movies without even the writer or director, or mostly without the writer director even being aware of it. Like Vanessa VA's embedded messages that are in songs where the writer didn't even intend it. It means something to you or to me if we're on a different spiritual level, listening on a different frequency. She'll call it the retrocausality language. I believe is absolutely real, flows through all art. In summary of this section, I'm extremely confident that this general attitude, the Jumanji moment, like the guy in Time who just had enough, no more attachment, no more covet, no more ways to root yourself to this world. It is necessary for this life test or this life game, putting yourself into a certain state. Now, there's other things that need to be done. This is one of the main components. Now, if you don't really understand it, and I'm still trying to figure it out, but think of the opposite. The opposite, if you're not understanding something, always go to the opposite and try to then move as far away from that example as you can, because the opposites, what the reality is out to do to us, is very easy to see. So then we just do the opposite, and that's a little harder to find, but the reality gives away what to do by you do what it doesn't want you to do. So in this example, somebody like my father, who, he never listened. He hasn't listened to one of my videos. He just has no interest. Just thinks I'm just lost and crazy. And, gosh, he used to be respected in a corporation. And that was, boy, why would he ever give that up? Oh, who knows? But I told him once about the reincarnation possibilities. He had known nothing about it, of course, how whole, billions of people that are Hindus, Buddhists, and they believe in reincarnation. He was actually, I've mentioned this in other videos, he was actually pretty excited about it. That could be a possibility, reincarnation, thinking he's going to live out his high school sports days, just like Al Bundy could relive high school football. He was a pitcher. Oh, he was pretty excited about it. And he's, well, maybe I'll get a chance to date this cheerleader or that cheerleader. So talk about attaching and coveting the world and rooting to it and begging for more of it. He's this, my father was the first day, I was going to say Action Jacksonation. I don't have to say it. It's free voice. The first day vaccine was available in Florida. Not only is he dialing for dollars, beep. Of course, millions of people trying to get on the same line. So it's just beep, 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 busy signal. And then when you get through, it would hang up on you. And he called me and said, can you, I know somebody from out of state, you can sign me up because you're my son or whatever. You're from out of state. You might come in on a different line. Can you dial for dollars? I was like, what? You want me to dial the number? He's so in love with the world. So you have to have the vaccine first. And then again, the notion, he's in love with the world. That's first. With people like my father. And then if eventually, he would accept, well, yeah, I guess I'm going to die. He really doesn't believe it. He absolutely does not believe it in the deepest part of his cells. He would say on paper in a multiple choice exam, of course I'm going to die. He doesn't truly believe it. He makes plans, especially regarding his money, like he's going to need it when he's 120, 180, Methuselah, 900. He makes plans that he has. He was a retired teacher. Okay, a retired teacher. I'm not talking about a lot of money here, but he said whatever. The magical pension check. He lives in Florida in his girlfriend's house. Magical pension check shows up from the state. Doesn't even spend that, and whatever's left, he make plans like he'll need it. So why will you need it? You'll be 110, dude. That's the same number of floors for the World Trade Center. So it's just like the world is everything, and then so if you actually do realize you're going to die, then he would actually hope to be recycled. Unlike us, we're trying to cut all ties so it can't get its greasy fingers on us. So again, I think where we're coming from is rare, and where my father's coming from is the position or a similar position of most people that we run into in this world anymore. Matt, these universal truths that flow through art or movies or music, explain that. How would that work? I can't. I don't want to. I could spend my whole life trying to research it, and that's exactly what the reality would want me to do, to try to research. I know it's happening. Can't explain the mechanism. Again, it's a breadcrumb the reality wants me to chase. Would love me to chase that for years. We don't need to spend our entire lives finding out exactly how everything works to find out about ourselves. We win by walking away from the chase. Like Ray Liotta, the reality will scream back at you from its rabbit hole. Not fear me, but research me. Research me. It wants us spending 10 years figuring out what happened to the side of the Pentagon. It's playing into its hands. And this is the main part of the presentation. The reality itself, when it screams at us or says, research me, it will see to it that we find more and more things that occupy our time that further feeds our research. It will supernaturally, artificially, somehow place the breadcrumbs in our path. I don't know how it does it, but it does it. There's no other explanation, as you'll see as I build this argument. It means it's doing this sort of thing in some sort of supernatural fashion and beyond what we can comprehend. Anyone who's done this for about 10 years, we now have what? About thousands and thousands of examples that things that would be almost impossible to pull off, where there's never a leak, never a breakdown in the presentation. Everybody down the cul-de-sac believes in everything the news presents. Reality breakdowns. I can't do this. It's so long. I can't go into 20-minute sidebars. So if you've done this a long time, I mean, how much more do you need to see that this shit couldn't be pulled off by guys and girls on the leather couches? I mean, when the Corbett Report showed a map that, or I think it was the Corbett Report, I don't know, this complex, hugely complex map and graph of all the hundreds of companies for 9/11 that were involved, and agencies, and this think tank was tied into this company, all tied into 9/11, and PNAC and SAIC and Lockheed, and the arrows go here and the arrows go there. And, you know, what the real conclusion, instead of putting all the pieces together, the real conclusion would be to just throw the pieces of the puzzle on the ground and just stand up and say, no real world could pull this off. It's easy to see at this point. Many of us are like, yeah, why didn't we see this? No real world can coordinate all this. If you've seen these graphs, 9/11 by itself. Add in Sandy Hook, add in 100 other events, add in the fraud of NASA, add in SpaceX. Everything's a fraud. No real world could pull this off. Give me a break. Just the things associated with 9/11, impossible to pull off. Complete reality breakdown right there. All right? Again, I love talking about how only 14 videos exist of something happening to South Tower. So there should be 500 videos of whatever, planes or no planes, it doesn't matter, of something happening. And we truthers, just for this one issue, we forget there was no camera phones. Matt, there was no camera. How many people told me that? No camera phones. Well, no kidding. I lived through it. I'm 50. But we forget there was actually something in New York in 2001 called a regular camera. You remember, right? Nikon, Canon, Olympus. There were even thousands of stores around New York that probably sold the little Fuji plastics and the Kodak disposables. They existed. And there was 100,000 tourists in Lower Manhattan or the general vicinity on 9/11. 100,000. Now, since I've been researching 9/11, I've probably watched 1,000 videos just on 9/11. Forget all the other truth topics. Now, maybe I missed it. I've watched as much as anybody on 9/11, so on all the detailed breakdowns. I've never heard anybody even mention the lack of no still images. Not the videos has come up from time to time. There should be more videos, but no still images. That I've never heard any truther present that in any presentation. I mean, it just shows you how lost and pathetic and used and played this whole truth community has been. I mean, come on. There's some of these things, it takes 10 years to see the obvious. But look, we are up against a huge headwind here, guys. I mean, it seems like some of this stuff is so basic. We should have seen it 5 years ago, and maybe we should have. But I don't beat myself up for not seeing certain things 5 years ago. I was listening to Alex Jones 5 years ago. It's just there's such headwinds in the way this reality lay, and there is this flood of radio waves or frequency and things that I call the download, and how people act and how they accept what the news presents around CV. It's like a download because we don't understand the mechanism of how it's applied to people, so they believe in all this nonsense. We are still, to a degree, probably subject to a little bit of it, so we can't beat ourselves up too much in looking back on things that we would have kicked ourselves and said we should have obviously noticed. It's amazing we are where we are in terms of what we can see regarding the headwinds that we're up against. And in terms of, guys, you know what I'm saying, in terms of the still images, I think New York would have more photographers, professional photographers, modeling agencies, studios, amateur photographers, wannabe documentarians. I mean, there would be, New York has more of that than any other city in the world. Once people found out what was going on, you would have had thousands of people with cameras running to a position on their block where they could get a view, if not bird's eye, but some sort of a view of the top of the World Trade Center. It's a reality breakdown. And, obviously I think it's in line with the reality pulling things off supernaturally, but people will still think it's the guys and the girls making phone calls on the leather couches. Okay, time to completely switch gears, do a little exercise, which will lead us into, hopefully, a better understanding and big thinking. So 10 people go into an ice cream parlor separately. 10 people go into an ice cream parlor. Each is informed that the ice cream shop is out of everything that it normally has, but it only has one flavor. But how fortunate for the person that went in. The ice cream shop has whatever's left over is the person's favorite flavor. So they're pleased and they order it. Now, 10 people, they later meet up, say, in a jurisdiction somewhere in the world where it's not a crime to get together with other people. And each tells the other in separate conversations about the great fortune they had earlier today, that when they went into this ice cream shop, the only flavor they had left was the flavor that they went in for. But the problem is everybody is telling the same story. It happened to all of them. The first person who got chocolate talks about all that was left was chocolate. But the person that got vanilla, the same thing happened. All they had left was vanilla. Each can verify that the ice cream shop, all they had left was their favorite. Yet they all have different flavors of favorite. And they all tell the story in identical circumstances, but with different outcomes, thus different flavors. They verify they were at the ice cream shop at about the same time on the same exact day. The person that got mint chip steps up and says, I got mint chip, and that's all they had. The sixth person got thrown out for not wearing a mask. And I assure you, this example has nothing to do with the 3-lick statute or ordinance law in Germany, where if you take more than 3 licks on premises, I think you go to jail probably for the rest of your life. This is just completely an example I came up with that I only later related to the German 3-lick ordinance. But these people that are together, they're talking about their experience, and they would soon come to the realization that something very strange was going on in Comet ice cream. It wouldn't take long, right, to think something's... But see, people today, we talk about all these different things going on, and people think it's just normal. See, this is kind of where this is all going. At least with the ice cream example, they would ask questions of each other and try to verify the experiences of the other with open minds. One person in their forum described it like this, and he said, normally under the glass in the ice cream shop, they've got these cardboard tubs of ice cream. It's like 10 feet long. They've got like 20 or more flavors all the time. And in the freezer, there was just one tub. Everything else was empty, and it was chocolate, my favorite. So I got a cone, and I didn't think much of it. And then the person that got mint chip says, I had the same experience, but that tub was my favorite, mint chip. What's going on? And they continue to talk. And in this situation, because it's trivial, it's just ice cream, We expect people to be civil. They would listen to one another as they continue talking. They'd offer a variety of explanations. Some people will be open-minded to the viewpoints of others, as strange as some of those viewpoints were. One may propose maybe it was some sort of candid camera trick, and we were all being filmed for a TV show. But how would they know what my favorite is? He said, I don't even buy ice cream much. How would they know what my favorite flavor was? It was a candid camera trick. Another person says, no, this is like something weird's going on here. This is like a Twilight Zone episode, guys. I mean, maybe we all 10 of us need to go back there now at the same time and see what happens if we all walk in together, like somebody proposing that something supernatural is going on. And because they all experience such a strange situation, that wouldn't be laughed at. Everybody's keeping everything on the table in this example. One of the main points of this presentation is the reality itself does this sort of thing to us every day regarding the biggest issues of our lives, and nobody notices that there's anything strange going on. Now, truthers, more than any other group, are played in this way and fall for the distractions that are placed before them without seeing the supernatural nature of what is going on. What do I mean? A truther's favorite flavor is served up to them daily or every time they do a research project. Their favorite flavor, artificially and supernaturally, is served up to them as everyone else's inside the conspiracy community is as well. They get what they expect to find. They get the ice cream flavor that they went in for, don't they? All at the same time. But nobody thinks this is odd. Nobody notices. People at the ice cream shop could put together in 10 minutes that something very strange was going on. But now, 10 years in, we're just starting to see this now. The flavors of ice cream in this analogy represent the facts or the evidence presented that the reality brings forth for those investigating. For example, something outside of our specific bucket inside of truth. An alien researcher, for example, doing this for 10 years, whatever he or she looks into. They've been shown evidence, pretty convincing evidence if you were there side by side with them, about the existence of aliens for the 10 years they've been doing it. Those who expect that the aliens are good and just helping human beings in their infancy stage evolve and ascend, they'll likely find the evidence that supports what they expect to find about those aliens. Those researchers in that part of the conspiracy asylum, we were in our own asylum. I'm not pointing fingers at them. We have our own wing of the asylum, according to the normies down the cul-de-sac. Those who expect to find malevolent aliens, they'll be shown that evidence. It's incredible. The person who spends a year investigating what happened to the side of the Pentagon will be amazingly provided with endless things to research and endless breadcrumbs. Those who believe Castro killed Kennedy will likely found a mountain of supporting evidence that Cuba did it. Now, this type of thing, could go on for hours and pages and pages. You see what I mean? No real world could do this to us. Give me a break. When I was talking about Star Trek's Generations a few videos back, and you kind of get to the point where there's going to be some sort of symbolism. You just look at the Wikipedia or something, or the running time in the movie. I looked at Star Trek Generations, the movie poster, the vector with the one-eye symbolism. I was talking about the Nexus, and I did miss it. Somebody sent me an email like, Matt, you missed it. The Nexus, the next us. That's what the next us and this technological bliss. You missed, and I did. I mean, I think there could absolutely be something there. So just now, a little bit, it's related to what I'm talking about now. How could a real world pull this off? Just now, just for fun, I talked about In Time with Justin Timberlake, and there's a movie poster. I don't know if it's the main movie poster, but definitely one of the big pictures is whole right side blacked out, the one-eye symbolism. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Well, Matt, don't you know the secret societies they control Hollywood? It's fine. Then the gematria, like the Zachary Hubbard channel, this endless gematria it just flows through reality. There's no difference, in my opinion, between the endless gematria, the reality markers of the 33, the reality markers of the 9/11, the endless one-eye symbolism. That's, of course, in some cases, it's put there specifically by a director who's into certain things. But overall, the amount of times this comes up, I mean, okay, I don't have to keep saying it. There's no normal world that could pull all this shit off. The most famous shot, or the one of the most famous shots at the end of the NBA playoffs was, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe, or 3 years ago. It was the 76ers against the Toronto Raptors. Kawhi Leonard from the corner, an impossible shot, beats the 76ers, I think, in the last second of Game 7. Impossible shot off in the corner, goes up in the air. It bounces 4 times on the rim before going in. It's like when Rodney Dangerfield at the end of Back to School did the triple Indy, was like, oh, he's going to do another diving board, another rim bounce, the whole world went into slow motion. Now, then it goes down to beat the 76ers. Now, if you do the still image of the players under the basket, I forget exactly, but there's like 233s. You know what I'm going to say. 233s, like a 9, next to an 11 boxing out. There's a 2 and a 3, a 2/3, a 666. It's just littered with, so the Illuminati put those players under the, come on. I don't know how the reality does this, but let's just notice that it does this. And people generally in like the sports talk around Philadelphia after it happened, people, and this is a good point, people were like, have you ever seen a ball in your life, even playing on the playground when you were in 6th grade, have you ever seen a ball bounce 4 times on a rim before going out or rim? 4 times, ever. We've all seen a ball bounce once or twice or whatever, 4 times. And then you combine that with the number symbolism on the jerseys. Basically, at around that point, I was like, I don't need to see anymore. All right. Is it the Matrix? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Worry about WOI. Worry about yourself. Take care of your spiritual self. Harden your armor. Stop chasing this bullshit. And regarding that last second shot, 4 times bouncing, which nobody's ever seen, the number symbolism, I could send that to present that to Ken or Tony or a friend, and they would think I'm absolutely out of my minds. Or, well, I don't know why I said it that way, but they would think we're absolutely out of our minds. This is the gigantic divide that exists between people like you and me, people like me and the guy at the end of the cul-de-sac. A divide that will never be brought back together again. Guys, I'm not going to let that Freudian slip go too out of my minds. All of a sudden, the scene in Tom Cruise, The Last Samurai, huge truth movie. It's just Dances with Wolves Part 2. The young Japanese who's assisting him, the son of Katsumura, he's trying to learn the samurai's kendo or karate, and he says, he can't speak English very well. He says too many minds, but he says, you mind the people watching, you mind your opponent, you mind your technique, too many minds, too many things you're thinking about, too many minds, no mind is what he says. Too many minds, no mind. And I understand what he's trying to say to Tom Cruise so he can get in touch with his kendo technique or whatever, but this is a huge truth drop, in my opinion, and maybe related to the Freudian slip that I just did about 2 minds. The mind of the true path of the real human being, and the mind that is always wanting to connect, I guess, through the ego and attach to this place that we're always fighting between that type of... You have duality even in the mind. Duality even in the mind. 2 parts of the brain separated by one little bridge across called I think it's called the corpus callosum. Does that make any sense? That by itself is a reality breakdown. 2 completely separate brains, one little bridge across. You think, well, wouldn't Darwin say via the evolution that there would be multiple ways for the brains to communicate? And they even say if there's one bridge across, that's what we've all heard our whole lives, the corpus callosum, then how is it when you cut it, or it's cut in certain children with certain conditions, well, how could the person continue to even operate? I don't know. It's just, we need to move on, I guess. When people look into big topics, they come to a variety of different conclusions, of course. Now, all the conclusions are valid. They really are. They're valid. The people are not all crazy that look into these separate topics. The conclusions are valid. And they're supernaturally produced and confirmed by the reality itself. Okay, let me prove this. The sheer number of different conspiracies, the number of conspiracies that we have seen and witnessed in this world is just by itself is a reality giveaway. That's just not possible that there could be this many breadcrumbs to chase. And people are finding mountains of evidence for each one that support each crazy wing of the asylum, which isn't possible in a real world. This phenomenon can be found in all conspiracy topics in the world. Do we just believe we're the only ones that get it and all these other researchers are just crazy? No, we get the information that we expect to find. And look, do I believe that we are on equal playing field with some of these other conspiracy researchers? No, I think we are closer. Okay, I don't think we are as fooled, of course, because we are getting into the very nature of reality itself. That's not what an alien researcher does. Alien researchers just, is this UFO real? I mean, they're not getting to the underlying nature of reality itself and seeing how they're used and played. So I think we're doing better, of course. But they're not crazy either. They're getting real evidence. This goes on all over the board, from the shape of the Earth to the Kennedy assassination and every thousand thing in between. Everybody finds a mountain of data to support what they want, kind of, and what they expect to find. Oh, isn't that convenient? The reality often provides evidence to each camp that conflicts with one another. You know, my favorite example of all time, but it's appropriate here. Flat earthers just know. They know the Earth is flat. And they have tremendous evidence, and there's no doubt about it, to back up their conclusions. No doubt about it. I'm not going to get into what all the evidence is. It's incredibly strong in the flat earthers camp. But the UCLA astronomy professor, he just knows the Earth is round. They each know their own thing is right. Well, how's that possible? See, all the flat earthers has all the evidence they need. The UCLA astronomer has all the evidence he or she needs to come to that conclusion. Now, this happens, both sides being shown or given what they want, happens all the time. And it's not a characteristic of a real world. It's more of a characteristic of a Tom and Jerry cartoon. Now they're going to play this game and create a whole another breadcrumb with another aspect of the Earth called Hollow Earth. Let's just talk about this for a few minutes. It's fascinating. I watched a dumb movie this weekend called Kong vs. Godzilla. I mentioned in the last video. Every few days, I need a break from dark reality, so I figured I'll watch this Kong versus Godzilla. Most movies I watch at night, it's still like truth research because somebody sends me something or sends me a truth drop movie. So anywhere from I'm watching the movie Bliss to some bizarre movie like Possum, where I don't recommend it. Spoiler though, if you're interested in Possum, which I don't recommend, very creepy, very dark. This thing with a head and spider tentacles represents the guy's personal past trauma. So anyway, I'm doing this sort of thing. So okay, I'll put on Kong versus Godzilla, and then here they are, pushing blatantly a new shape of the Earth. Quote new, because this has been around a long time, but it's new to the masses. They want to put it right alongside potentially, who knows where they'll take this, Hollow Earth. Okay, now the Hollow Earth presentation in Kong versus Godzilla is done in a very specific and intentional way. Again, I did allude to this in the last video, so I'll be quick about it. It's not like they just mentioned here or there, and somebody said, what do you mean this Kong and Godzilla could be from another environment, a hollow Earth? The Titans come from below, very similar to the relationship of what a Kronos comes from below. They call Godzilla a Titan. And, but no, they keep saying, no, the Titans are produced in the Hollow Earth, the Hollow Earth, the Hollow Earth. It starts to be presented in the movie like it's just a given that there's this Hollow Earth. And to me, look, it's just, that doesn't mean there's really a Hollow Earth. I don't know what it means, but it will lead to thousands of people researching the idea. And guess what? You know what I'm going to say? Those thousands of people will find all the evidence and all the breadcrumbs they need to start believing that this could actually be real. Is it real or not? At this point, I'm saying we live in some sort of matrix fluid reality. It doesn't matter. And all it wants to do is create the chase. All it knows how to do is lay down breadcrumbs. At the end of the day, only one thing's important. The breadcrumbs are there to keep a human being away from its true nature and understanding its spiritual self. That's all that matters. these hours and hours of presentations here, or whatever, my next video, if you understand that, honestly, you can walk away. I hope you don't. You know, this is what I do. I hope you don't, and I hope that I make it entertaining enough where you don't. But you can, if you just realize that. Okay? Step 3 is a half a page. Nevertheless, I think these types of investigations are fascinating, and hit me not long ago that the end of the Gone with the Wind could be a metaphor for reality itself. It's fascinating, so I don't want to lose you, but I'm just being honest. You know, if you're ready to walk away, and walk away. Back to Hollow Earth, just to wrap up that topic and relate it back in. I knew a guy in the 90s. I first met him in the 90s. My dad and I would go to his friend's house in Florida. He was also a retired teacher. Been down there, I don't know, like 5 times. My dad's been down tons of times. There was this guy named Alan. He lived by himself. He'd help you with your gardens. He's just quiet, kind of a strange guy until we got to know him. And he would love to talk to you about the Hollow Earth, and he had some crazy conspiracy theories. The point is, this goes back to the 90s, mid-90s, before basically anybody had the internet. Okay? Don't forget the point of this section. I guarantee you, this Alan guy, the more he looked into the Hollow Earth, I don't even know how you would do it before the internet, but he had been doing it for years before the internet. Now, the more he looked into it, in my opinion, the more the reality itself fed and confirmed for him what he desperately wanted to believe, or what he expected to believe, that the Earth was hollow. He also would talk to you about Dyson spheres, if you people know what that is, how a sun surrounded by an artificial structure, whatever it might be. He had some out there theories. He wasn't crazy. He was a little off in some ways. I agree, but so he might not be the best example. But the research was there, and the breadcrumbs were there when he went looking. Okay, just an example, because we're talking about the Hollow Earth. Now, the way it would probably work in standing back far enough and observing the reality is, if he ever got bored with it, say he got bored with it, I think amazingly and miraculously some new research would show up, or some article would show up that would get him interested again. And the movie reality would show him a bunch of new breadcrumbs. Again, a fascinating new article about, say, a secret entrance hole to the Hollow Earth in Antarctica, also presented by Kong versus Godzilla. The 33s and the conspiracy stuff also presented by Kong versus Godzilla. But then Alan would read this probably, and then that would introduce him to Admiral Byrd. And he would spend, however, maybe he did it in a library. I don't know how he researched this stuff back in the day, but then he'd be weeks and weeks of research on the Admiral Byrd bullshit. It's just what the reality does when you back up far enough away from it and observe it. The same as when I talked about a year ago of, if we ever just put our rifles down, the rabbit would come running to you. If you put your rifle down, the rabbit would jump up on your lap and ask to be hunted. And to address this, I'm sure some people have problems with the way I keep saying the reality, like it's alive or something. People screaming at their computers, why does he keep talking about the reality? Like it's alive or something, or what's his deal, man? This guy talking about the reality. He's a loon, man. I don't know any other way to put it. I don't know the mechanism, but it's not the buck stops here. You know that? The buck doesn't stop with some idiot minion like Melvin P. Gates. The buck doesn't stop with some idiot minion like Trump or Barack Obama or Jeff Bezos, Dr. Evil. What's his net worth up to now? $200 billion? Dr. Evil. I'm holding the world hostage for $1 million. Jeff, $1 million isn't a lot of money anymore. You're worth $200 billion. So what do you... Oh, 100 billion. And he is holding the world hostage to a sense, because once all the shops close, he could just turn off your food supply line. You think you're going to get your pet meds? Yeah, he'll just turn it off. It's a Dr. Evil floating around in Bob's Big Boy plot, what Bezos is up to. But I'm saying not really. The buck doesn't stop with him. These are more like caricatures, this Mark Zuckerberg. I'd rather say that than I can say it here, Zuckerberg, if that's right. I like Zuckerberg. Somebody had a brilliant comment. I forget who it was, but said, Matt, these billionaires, or Elon Musk went up, he went up $50 billion in a short period of time or whatever. These people are used to park money actually to keep money, to keep inflation in check. These billionaire minions are used to park money. Now, for years, I've been saying they can't use their money as they see fit. No question about that. They're puppets used, abused, and the ultimate role that they're playing for the reality, I don't even think they understand it. Okay? But they're puppets and the brilliant comment was they're actually used to park billions and billions because it takes those billions out of circulation, actually keeps inflation in check. Brilliant comment, because you never see these people doing anything with their money other than just parking it. And Bill Gates saying he's going to give it all away. His net worth is still 90-some billion. Really? I mean, give me a break. And then you talk to your family and friends about that, and they'll just make excuse after excuse, run scripts and downloads as to why, Matt, don't you know it's hard to give that much money away? Oh, my God, the people we have to interact with. Sorry, back to the point. I can only say the reality because it's the best way to understand it. If you don't like that, call it the Event Horizon ship. And at this point, it has been, something has evolved it into something that dark. It shows you breadcrumbs. It shows you the reality you expect. Reflect, yes, that's a Freudian slip. Reflect. That just spurted out by accident. It's a mirror image reality. It creates the darkness in you and real people to reflect. We have to reflect back out the darkness. If you don't like the reality itself does this, say the Event Horizon ship tells Dr. Evil to do this, or the Event Horizon ship, which it represents the reality, or Scarlet tells Melvin P. Gates to run around and push his vaccines. I mean, what a clown that Bill Gates is. I mean, people are so envious of him because he made his billions. Even if the billions are his to do with as he sees fit, there's a price, man, on the back end. I think he'd be running around playing this little vaccine role, this hated character in certain circles, and pushing his little smiley face next to the syringe. At the minimum, if not, he's just a complete vessel puppet. At the minimum, he has to pay back. He's paying a price for how he was pushed to the forefront, for what he was given back in the day with his role that he plays now. I hope he doesn't like getting up out of bed in the morning. Oh, I got to play that vaccine role again, honey. Was it the Melvin P. and Belinda Gates Foundation? One last time, you've heard it before because it's so important in this presentation. I'll be quick. The Event Horizon spaceship has, in the movie with a fat Lawrence Fishburne, has passed through actually a plane of hell. Using its certain type of singularity propulsion that folds space-time, it's gone through a plane of hell and returned to our reality. So in the movie, it's alive, for lack of better words, just like the reality seems to be. It shows each member, in the movie, shows each member of the surviving crew their worst fear, presented with their worst fear right in front of them in vivid detail. They can smell it, they can see it. When we accept this supernatural aspect of what's happening in the movie and the story because it's a sci-fi horror movie. Of course we expect the bizarre and the supernatural. That's what the movie genre is all about. But this same, very similar, bizarre, supernatural shit happens in our own lives and all the time. But people would call us crazy for making parallels in the observation between what the Event Horizon ship is doing and what reality itself is doing. We're just nuts. Okay, the best place to start is here. Best place to start, an hour and 28 minutes into the presentation, is here. Don't you think it's odd, the sheer number of conspiracies that exist for each segment of conspiracy research? Hundreds at this point. It's ridiculous. It's beyond unnatural. It's something that regular people can't pull off. If somebody said, well, Matt, these aliens are real, or Matt, the Bigfoot's real, so someone's researching the real thing, or Matt, this aspect is real, or this secret society pulling straight. All these things are real. No, they couldn't all be happening, and they couldn't all be plotted with people making phone calls from their leather couches either. The only thing that could show all these conspiracy research is what they expect to find is a fake world, a matrix of some kind. The researchers, as I said, are not crazy. The reality is seeing to it, they're getting what they're looking for. They're ordering chocolate, and they're served chocolate. And at least in their ice cream parlor, it's the only flavor left. It's the only one available. The QAnon people are ordering another flavor of ice cream, and they're being served it. This goes on and on and on. A person who's part of alien website groups or YouTube channels, they have hundreds of reports, maybe thousands, sightings, some sort of pictures, videos, accounts, testimonies. They have a collection of evidence over like 50 years at least. They, without a shadow of a doubt, they believe that aliens are among us. Many believe they're guiding humanity through our evolution, like they would be raising sea monkeys, whatever it may be. They have this evidence. They're not crazy. Where's all this evidence coming from? That's not something we look into much, those in this group of the conspiracy wing, but we know these people exist, and it's not really for us, and maybe we never really thought about it. Yeah, what kind of evidence are they being presented? Now, a regular, normal person, a normie who works in the cube next door to that alien researcher, he has himself 100 reasons why that guy in the cube, the Area 51 guy, they call him, they have 100 reasons why he's misguided at best and at the worst a little crazy. So once again, the reality has shown both sides what they desire and expect to see in order so they dig into their respective positions, and it's done so skillfully that no one is able to ever, very few ever move from their position to see or accept the other side. The alien researcher isn't just going to stand up one day and say, you know what, I've done this for 10 years. I was wrong. I'm just done with it. And they might say they're done with it because it never goes anywhere, but they're not going to say, I don't believe in aliens anymore. The person in the cubicle down, next door to him isn't going to one day say, okay, Bob, after you've been trying to show me this stuff for 10 years, I'm now on board. I believe these aliens you say exist. Nobody's ever going to come around. That's not possible in a real world either. People dig in and they don't move. There's like 1,000 examples of this phenomenon. For example, Matt is shown a smiling Robbie Parker. And that kind of cements my conclusion on Sandy Hook. Like if there wasn't anything else, like bizarre characters like Gene Rosen running around, just from Robbie Parker alone, it kind of can cement that it didn't happen. I don't think we needed to see much more after we saw him come out after he lost his first grader the day before. But he comes out all happy, and then he gets into character. Okay, I'd love to do a whole hour video just on that. It's just incredibly fascinating. Now, my cousin, and this is just an example. It's not really my cousin, but we've heard this stuff. My cousin knows somebody whose friend was actually killed in the horrible tragedy. So they're just 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from the person that was murdered by that character, Adam Lanza. And then was it Rob that said they know somebody that knew Adam Lanza? It's all these conflicting reports come all the time. It's just what I'm telling you. I have no other way to explain it. It's what the reality does. But after I've seen a smiling Robbie Bobby, I'm not going to come off my position. Well, for a lot of reasons, but let's just continue to go with this. People lose first graders. It does happen from time to time. It's a horrible tragedy in real life events, but they don't take a podium the next day and smile. How come the people I've argued with this about can't just come to the basic realization of why would he be taking a podium anyway the day after? Somebody call him up and say, Robbie, you just lost your first grader, but do you have a good suit in the house? You do? Is it dry cleaned? We'd like you to come to a CNN podium. And there will be other microphones from other news agencies there, and we want you to talk. If anything were real, it'd be like, well, what are you talking about? It's been one day. It's such common sense. The people around us can't see it. So my position's dug in, but then my cousin knows somebody that knows somebody in this example, and she has a personal connection. So she's never, ever going to come off her position that Matt's crazy. It didn't happen. Of course, she'll never in the world come off. She'll believe 100% in the event. Okay, not only will she never move her position over to my side, she'll run some sort of script or download, get extremely angry at anybody that believes, quote, what we believe, and things like, how could you disrespect the families? And I had my mother once at a luncheon. Of course, my mother, I haven't seen her since February because, everybody's fearful of CV. But we used to go to lunch every so many weeks or whatever here in the Exeter area. And then years ago, she said, Pam told me that you don't believe in Sandy Hook. she would, if we weren't in a crowded restaurant, she would have screamed and like stormed out. She was violent. Some script was running. And of course I was like, well, can we talk about this logically? And no, that the anger, vitriol, is that even a real word? So all this crap, theme of this presentation, no real world could keep pulling this off. The reality supernaturally plays all sides at the same time. And one last time, revisiting my favorite example, because this is absolutely where it can be observed, of reality just giving both, oh, I got the winning coin here. No, I got the winning coin, but only one winning coin is given out. Well, we both have it, but then they both won't acknowledge that the others have it. It's globe Earth versus flat Earth. Let's do it one more time. It's fascinating. It really is. Both sides, I'll do it as quickly as I can for anybody rolling their eyes like we've done this before. Both sides are presented with the evidence they need to latch onto their position like a wolverine and never move off of it. The reality shows both sides exactly what it wants and what it expects to see. Now, one of the original reasons I never got involved in this topic, I've said this many times, is something this wondrous, I don't, dumbing it down to two shapes, that didn't really sit right with me. Just give me two doors to choose from, globe or flat, less filling, tastes great. Yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be, it's good. Something that wondrous is going to be like that. That's going to be the end. Like the eclipse is either going to be a jar of pretzels, or the eclipse possibly might be a bag of marshmallows. It's pick one of the two, Matt. No, it's going to be something we probably can't comprehend in this human avatar. It was always a first grade dumbing down. Just give me two shapes. Okay, you got it. Now, all I needed to see, right, in this whole thing was how NASA lies about everything they put forth, and putting forth the bozos like Vintage Space just to help people believe in it, and the presentation NASA puts forth. That's where I would have ended this. Just if you're ever going to talk to people, just limiting it to, hey, NASA lies. Once you get into the other stuff, then they just write you off as crazy, of course. But what the Earth really is something we'll likely never understand, all right? Now, these people, the researchers, don't realize that the insatiable quest to figure out all the physical aspects of it, the insatiable quest and the breadcrumbs laid to figure out the aspects of what the Earth really is the distraction the reality really wants, just like Hollow Earth was just introduced in Kong versus Godzilla. So in that case, Not Milk 1 point, Flat Earth researchers 0. So unless you can see what's happening and move past its games, no, you're never going to get anywhere. I'm not trying to make enemies with this group of researchers. They're the ones that originally showed how NASA's a fraud from top to bottom. And I appreciate them doing that. That's the most important point. The reality does it to all of us in different ways for like 5 years. Fake event shooting, fake event shooting, fake event. All I did was research it, research the next one, research the next one. Okay, what's your findings, Matt? It's fake. What's your findings, Matt? It's fake. What are you saying, Matt? Some of them weren't really fake? Or I don't know. There's something supernatural going on here. An event like Las Vegas you can't explain. There's reality breakdowns. But if somebody, I'm not getting on the flat earthers because I followed a different set of breadcrumbs, researching the fake events. We all were used and played in this regard. The idea, though, is to some point to see the reality game going on and move past it. Come back to working on yourself and stop chasing the outward screen, the outward environment. That's where it wants your attention. And it will create anything to get your attention. It custom makes whatever you expect to see, whatever you want to see, or whatever type of breadcrumb you'll chase. So from reality's perspective, in the ultimate thing that wants to move a human being into a certain place, there's no difference from the reality's perspective, in my opinion, no difference between somebody trying to figure out what the ice wall is all about and someone who follows the red carpet pre-Oscar stuff. Am I triggering you? I'm sorry. Some people, Matt, finally getting to the bottom of what the shape of the Earth is, and see that I know what they would say. If you could prove that to people, Matt, then you prove the entire power structure is a fraud. Then you'll prove how we've been lied to about everything. That's the carrot they'll put at the end of the string. That's why you keep researching it. Oh, if I could just show people the Earth is flat, that shows the nature of the deception. You don't think I know that? But you'll never get there. It's like the holodeck. You're Captain Picard on the holodeck. thinks in this huge environment with hundreds of thousands of acres and horseback riding, and it's the holodeck. He's just in this little room, 40 by 40, that keeps changing. I guess the floor keeps moving underneath him, and he's not going anywhere. That's what it's doing. It's not like concerned that, oh, these researchers are finally understanding what the flat earth is all about, and they're doing ice wall investigation, and I'm worried about this group because they're getting close. But these idiots following the red carpet and Ryan Seacrest, oh, look, they're so lost. I'm just worried about these truthers. No, from the reality's perspective, it's no different. It's still chasing the breadcrumbs the reality put out, keeping you away from yourself. Okay, I can't say that much more. You either see that at this point or not. So flat earthers, and I'm sorry, we've all been used. Again, I'm sorry to be picking on one group. I don't want to make enemies. But they end up proving my theory about how reality works just a little bit better than most other groups, because they never give an inch back in favor of their rivals. The flat earthers will never give an inch back. Okay? This is also a little bit strange in how they get triggered. They seem to run scripts. We all do. Okay? We have to shed this. We have to drop all veils. We all have work to do. So the flat earther versus the UCLA astronomy professor, for examples. The flat earthers won't give an inch back to the UCLA astronomy professor. All right? It's a very interesting reveal to me as to how the overall reality works. I've had many flat earthers tell me, in comments or whatever, that there's not a shred of evidence anywhere in the world that supports the globe Earth model. Now, I'm sorry. This could be one of the dumbest comments of all time. Okay? I'm going to cover this one more time. Go research why Venus. I don't think Venus is something Matt Damon can go fly to. Okay, we mostly agree. I don't want to make enemies of you. So we agree the stars aren't what they say. NASA lies about everything. There's no Mars. You can't go fly to it and land on it like Matt Damon. But go research why Venus. So I'm not supporting the Neil deGrasse Tyson model. Okay, relax. But go research why Venus can only be seen at twilight or just at sunrise. Okay, the morning star, the evening star. That, when you research it, it's almost perfect support for the Stephen Hawking model of the solar system. By itself, the predictability of the heliocentric math telling astronomers where objects will be 100 years from now or 500 years from now, their predictability math for their model is perfect. The flat earthers have models from like Martin Kenney with planets doing bizarre loop-de-loop motions, because that's the only way you can explain certain observations. Weird loop-to-loop motions in their animations like retrogrades. The concept of retrograde is almost perfect support for the globe model. I'm not here to... People are getting triggered. I'm not here to back... Oh, I knew he was a backer of Neil deGrasse Tyson and what's his name? Michiko Pikachu. No, I'm here to show you how the reality shows all sides what it wants, and it's an artificial matrix of some kind, and no real world could do that. And if you get stuck on flat Earth, that's what it wants. That's what I'm here to show you. Not to people will be so triggered by this. Come on, man. The way the reality works with this, or basically almost any example, when people research things that are, quote, important in life, one side isn't right and one side isn't wrong. The reality somehow sees to it, at least at the evidence they're presented, that both are right at the same time. The reality just sees to it. Supernatural, Matrix, not real. Now, someone had a very interesting comment recently, and I'm not sure exactly how they put it, but it was something like, okay, people research the reality, then lays breadcrumbs, manifesting what they expect. Then if I expect, I should be able to expect a beautiful world, and the reality should show it to me. Yeah, it probably would. But there's one big problem. Almost no one in this community, and I mean nobody, expects to go looking for a beautiful world and to expect to actually find it. Look what we've been dealing in this community for, say, the past 10 years. You know, dark things on top of dark things. 9/11, evil cabals, pedos, adrenochrome, Pizzagate, poison sky, poison water, cooked up war, corruption, etc. Dark topic, dark topic, dark topic. So that's where they've put us. But now we can just shed that overnight and just find a beautiful world? Maybe that's the reason the realities led us down all these dark topics. The mirror reflection of reality, then it manifests back. So it's going to take a lot of work for us to truly believe that we can shed and get rid of all of that baggage and expect beautiful world and then find beautiful world. I mean, we've analyzed a warped and dark society in every way. Again, demons, archons, Anunnaki, bloodlines. There is probably not a single truther at this point that can find a beautiful world if they expect it and then manifest it. Is that possible someday? Yes. But we have to shed a lot of baggage to get there, I think. This is a major way we in this community have been played over time. We expect hell, so the reality gladly delivers the hell to us. In Event Horizon, Lawrence Fishburne never thought to potentially use the ship's power and spin it to his own advantage. He never even thought that was even possible, didn't even think to try. Having the Event Horizon ship work for him. It's potentially what this reality could do for us, but nobody's ready to do it. We're a long way from it. So in Event Horizon, instead of seeing his crew member burning alive in front of him with all the horrific sights and sounds and the smells of burning flesh, skin peeling off, Fishburne, he didn't think to do it. But he could have perhaps used the Event Horizon to recreate Thornton Mellon's dorm party and back to school. What's a bath without bubbles? There's likely a good reason in the movie Event Horizon. They presented it that the heart of the ship, what they say in Event Horizon, the heart of the ship is a singularity. Well, Matt, they used a black hole. Okay, but it has dual meaning. If you've been doing this truth thing long enough, there's a reason for that, in my opinion, associated with the movie Event Horizon. And she says, all pissed off to Dr. Weir, "You've harnessed the most destructive force in the universe to power a ship," meaning the black hole, what he calls the singularity. Yeah, but think of it translated into another sense. Getting a human being to compromise its spiritual self and merge with a technological singularity may be the most destructive thing in the unknown universe so far. So I go back to Event Horizon a lot, guys. It's a huge, huge truth drop movie. The reflective reality showing you what your worst fears, but showing what comes from you. The reality itself is generated, or at least the most horrific elements generated by the real consciousness. There's a lot there. And for those who haven't seen it in 3 or 4 years, definitely be worth seeing again. I don't need to see it. I've seen it like 20 times. In terms of all the things the reality can show each group researching, it's not just, I don't want to make it seem like it's just in the truth community or just conspiracy researchers. It does it to everybody. Scientist, and everybody goes into the ice cream shop. And, we only have one flavor left. What's your flavor? Oh, mine was strawberry. Oh, that's what we have. That's what we have. Isn't that wonderful? I have a date with Lisa tonight. Isn't that wonderful? That's all. But it does it to everybody. So let's just go through some of the lists. This list could be, 100 pages long? Just to give you a sense as to what I'm talking about. The Flat Earth researcher finds the exact supporting evidence that they're looking into. And it's there. Of course, it's there. From the laser tests across the lakes to pilots going, don't you have to move the stick down every 20 seconds? No, it's there. Okay? But like I said, the UCLA astronomy professor has mountains and mountains and mountains of research about his model. It's there on both sides. The Hollow Earth researcher, like my buddy Alan, finds his supporting evidence. Then they see Kong versus Gorilla, and they're really thrilled about it. That's truth drop. A researcher on Anunnaki, was it Anunnaki or Archon? This isn't my thing. Genetic manipulation of the humans were used as slaves and all this stuff, and that's not my thing. I don't buy into that really. But it's like, I guarantee if it was my thing and I started researching, I'd find all the evidence in the world. All that there comes that Zecharia Sitchin stuff, and assuming you even believe the legitimacy of Zecharia Sitchin, he was probably shown by the reality exactly what he expected to find. It's the way it works. A Cal Berkeley loon that is an expert in Darwin's evolution. He presents that to his liberally brainwashed class. He has tons of supporting evidence for that. Of course, to me, it seems like I could take a podium, half hung over in the morning with no notes and destroy anybody about the impossibility of we evolved from monkeys. It's so absurd. But the person I'd be going against, I guarantee there's evidence. They're not these people. They're scientists, but see, that's where we think, oh, they're either all in on it or just lost. No, the reality itself is feeding them evidence. Okay, I guess I'm being a little bit overkill, but it's like, honestly, if the truth community was ready to accept this, I wouldn't be doing this saying the same thing over and over again. Even after 10 years, very few of us are ready to accept this. An Elon Musk fanboy, SpaceX fanboy, they're fed, I guarantee, they're fed what they need to believe every bit of it, keep all the posters up on the wall, and then we get the opposite. We get pictures of rats running around the engine and horrible CGI things of the first stage returning. We get what we want, they get what they want. An ISS denier, of course, will find all sorts of people flying around on wires. That's what the reality will do. The people that believe in the ISS and believe they're just up there playing the cello and running around, floating around with gorilla suits, they're never going to, for some reason, you could send them a DVD with guys floating around on the wires or grabbing objects that aren't there with their bad CGI. For some, who knows what they'll see when you give them the DVD. They might load it in their player and see something different. They never will see that. Reality playing all sides, both sides. A side of the Pentagon researcher for 9/11 will find thousands of pages so they consider all aspect of what happened. When nothing happened. They probably, if there's anything real about it, and we don't live in a complete matrix, they did blew out the side of it. Simple. Why would they have to think anything happened or anything flew in? So Matt in 2015 will find he'll be played and used. 2015, 2016, back to 2012, back to Sandy Hook. He'll find blatant evidence that every single major shooting was fake. Blatant, almost ridiculous. Where, my family sees that news and they believe that it's real. It's just somehow, now there's other, I'm saying it shows both sides of what it wants at the same time, but there's other techniques that are being employed related to the download, related to mind control, or whatever, things that reality buttons and levers we just don't understand. Okay, the Kennedy assassination, talked about it in the last video. It's the same way. So I'm going to skip over this whole section here, guys. Kennedy assassination, military-industrial complex did it. Thousands of pages of evidence on that. Cuba did it. Thousands of pages of evidence on that. The Fed did it. Thousands of pages of evidence supporting that. The Russians did it. Who knows how much? All the evidence there. It's a mob hit. All this evidence. It's ridiculous. It's not possible. And then what does Matt get? Thinking nothing happened. Completely fake. What do I get? I get all the evidence I need to believe that. It's so obvious to me nothing happened in the Kennedy assassination that with an hour of preparation, I'd be happy to debate anybody. It would be a piece of cake. But that's just because that's what I believe one of the aspects at play here is not that I've figured it out and all these researchers are just lost and stupid. I think everybody's getting the evidence that they expect to get. Okay? That's the premise of this video said again. Maybe I should shut up and just continue. And in this presentation, I'm not talking there about the other means or mechanisms or spellcraft or technology that they just get everybody to run these scripts and everybody's on like a download. So last thing regarding Kennedy, that this is too long. We need to talk about sometime the other means that are being employed on people. But things like the promise of the release of information about what happened to JFK. It's like every 10 years, like the same script is run. Even happened during the Trump administration that this thousands of pages are going to be put out and we'll finally get to the bottom and get some answers. And then, I don't know, like something's put out and nothing changes. Nobody, it just doesn't move at all. And then the reality will recycle the same script. And 10 years from now, people will expect to get answers about the Kennedy assassination, where they should be just, they should be stopping and saying, wait a second, what the hell is going on here? No world could keep putting out this bull crap and getting people to run these scripts that they're finally going to, the next time they're going to get the answers as to what really happened in the Kennedy assassination. It's a freaking clown show. So if I don't think the world is very real, there's no point in comparing anything or explaining anything. To me, a Mandela effect, simple Kit Kat dash Mandela effect, is no different than the Cologne Cathedral in explaining it. If I don't think the world is real and it can move and do things in supernatural fashion, why would the big gigantic object that I was in really mean anything different or anything more to me than me looking down at a Kit Kat bar, and if I'm Mandela affected in that way, knowing it had a dash? I just use that because it's the most trivial Mandela effect of all time. I don't know if there's a dash now there and it didn't have it. It's not one of my anchors. I am very Mandela affected, but I don't think there's a damn difference, okay? I don't think just because one thing's big and heavy and one thing's a Kit Kat dash, I don't think there's any difference. That's what I'm saying. Most people in this community are just not willing to go far enough. Like, I can talk to somebody and say, are you Mandela affected? And they'll say, oh, yeah, Matt, I'm Mandela affected. Oh, tell me your anchor. So here they are. Is the Kit Kat dash a anchor effect? And somebody might say in this example, oh, yeah, I know there was a dash. I know that for a fact. It's an anchor effect. So they're very Mandela affected, reality change right in front of their eyes. And they'd say, okay, let's talk about the Cologne Cathedral and how this stuff could not have been built. And they'll be like, oh, I'm not going to go there. I don't know what happened, inherited buildings or means or Tartaria civilization or this or that, or there was a prior, I'm not going to go there regarding something big and heavy. Well, you said reality changed in front of your very eyes on these Mandela effects, but for something big and heavy in a reality you say can just shift and just change, why has that more merit and stock just because it's big and heavy? See what I'm saying? It's just people need to go a little farther and expand their minds. If you're talking about a whole reality that can shift, there's no difference between a Kit Kat dash and the Cologne Cathedral. And these types of topics are just more support for what I'm saying. I've been in this community hardcore for 10 years. This Tartaria thing, I don't know, popped up out of the blue for the most part 4 years ago. And I'm not saying there's no evidence. Of course, there's tons of evidence. But think of what I'm saying about what the reality is able to pull off. Where did all this evidence come from? It was generated like breadcrumbs, in my opinion. It's just, so all the conspiracy researchers, all this stuff, giant books and maps. Oh, I don't know, nobody saw it. And then 4 years ago, it's like all this Tartaria stuff, maps, books, all this mud flood evidence, all these old pictures. I'm sorry. Reality generated it itself. Mud flood came out of the blue 3 or 4 years ago. Tartaria came out of the blue 3 or 4 years ago. It just did. It's reality generated. I'm sorry. The more people were interested in researching it, the more breadcrumbs it produced. Now, it's likely the, quote, dark ones know exactly how this mirror reflection reality works and are expert at pulling their buttons and levers so the reflection back is the dark perversion they want, like the way the Borg immediately start adjusting the environmental controls when they take over a ship. The Borg like a certain temperature and humidity, so they start changing it when they invade a ship. The Dark Minions like a population tuned to a certain frequency. They like the fear frequency, worry, anger, anxiety, because they likely feed from that resonance in some way. Now, to the normies down the cul-de-sac, all that's going on in the world is just normal. It's just the best a modern society can do. We see the darkness, but we've been blind to how we've been played to actually help create the darkness. The acceptance of the world as it moves down toward insanity by the people around us, to me, also is being done with supernatural means. As time goes on, I'm linking the concept of the download in my Andy presentations, people taking a download to run scripts or to defend certain positions, or to say it makes perfect sense, Matt, that Hong Kong had 3 deaths on 7 million people living on top of each other, just to defend certain positions in a way that can't be explained, almost like they're completely insane. I'm linking the download to the Mandela effect. Okay, I think it's one and the same. Like we're living inside one gigantic Mandela effect. Little stuff like Kit Kat dashes and movie line changes, that to me is like a side effect of the greater reality shift that's going on. Reality shifts, everybody moves down the river of insanity on the ship of fools, and we stay rooted to the bank. And as it gets farther and farther away, the divide between you and your family and friends gets greater and greater, each thinking the other is insane.
I don't think it's as simple as one group is right and the other group is wrong, or even that we're right and the other group is wrong. We're just following what we've been shown. I do think because of our trying to find our spiritual selves, we are more advanced than the guy down the cul-de-sac. I'm not putting us all at that level, the people that just want to follow the red carpet. But you know what I'm saying? It's more like the phrase from the kingdom of heaven. You know, Jerusalem, who has claim? All have claim. None have claim. All at the same time, sure. You know, what a bunch of idiots we've been. We continue to be until we have certain realizations as to how the reality itself works. You know, this type of thing that I'm talking about here explains how all these Buddha at the gas pump guests, there's a big ascension channel and, you know, rising spiritual self up, and there's a ton of them. But I just pick on this one that has over 100,000 subs called Buddha at the gas pump. And you've heard me say many times, the guests come on, and I haven't heard tons and tons of interviews, but these people must never talk about the dark side that we focus on. Like, I mean, would they believe that 9/11 guys with box cutters brought down 7 buildings? I mean, did they, you know, it's, you know, if anybody, this stuff exists in their reality. I sure, if I held the hand of the guests of people in Buddha at the gas pump and we went to New York City holding hands, there'd be 2 gigantic black squares, some sort of creepy monument to 9/11. It happened in their reality. It's not like if we were to go there, there'd be this beautiful pasture there. And to me, there's 2 black cubes of Saturn. We see the same thing, but for some reason they don't ever touch on the dark side. And it's the dark side is so, even with what's going on now, of course, it's so in your face. That's why, you know, I get on these people, but it doesn't matter how smart you are. These Buddha at the gas pump people are very, very smart and educated, and they seem like nice people. In all cases, the Event Horizon reality presents a custom-made set of circumstances to each member of its audience who expect to find a certain thing and have certain types of takeaways. It doesn't matter how smart you are. The reality has tricks and tools that are supernatural, and sometimes it does seem like actually the more intelligence one has, the more ability to be fooled that they are. Okay, I've talked about this guy before. Aaron Abke, A-B-K-E. It's the YouTube channel name, Aaron Abke. He's about as smart as they come, okay? Smart as they come. Total praise, all right? But smart, like I said, and being fooled by the reality, they have nothing to do with each other, you know, nothing to do with each other. So in a video a month ago, just to get to the point, he's talking in a video about a month ago, and some of his points, I watched some of his videos, some of his points about understanding yourself are very, very good. But in this case, let's just get on this one video. It's probably not fair, but we're going to do it. He's saying basically good aliens are watching over our infant development stage on Earth. There's a set of benevolent aliens. I don't know any details in what he's presenting, but there's good aliens here shepherding the planet along, giving us the assistance, you know, where we need it, like Star Trek's, what is called the Prime Directive. You can't intervene directly, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've heard this sort of thing many, many times beyond his channel and hundreds of other channels. These aliens are just helping out. Okay, now, do we buy any of that stuff? No, in this community, we don't buy that stuff. It's not our thing. But this guy's no dummy. Again, remember this and related to my theory here. I'm saying he's doing his research, and the reality is giving him exactly what he expects or even wants to find in terms of coming up with this position that this alien group is shepherding and looking over the human race, where most people, we just don't give any attention to aliens here or there. Okay, if anything, we venture into it a little bit with reptilians or archons or Anunnaki or whatever might stand behind the bloodline families that control the darkness of this world. We poke into it from time to time in that sense, but not in the traditional UFO sense. Okay, again, not picking on him. He's smart enough where I certainly wouldn't want to debate him on anything. Okay, I just think we all have to step back and see, are we all being played by the reality itself? Now, he has other videos about astral travel, and I haven't watched them, but apparently he can maybe astral travel, go out of body. This is not the first time we've heard this sort of thing. There are a lot of people come forth with these types of skills or remote viewing. He might say, Matt, do you astral travel? I'd say, no, I don't leave the house. I'd say, well, then, what? the truth is more available to me. I would say, well, how do you know? How do you know you're getting the truth when you astral travel? See what I'm saying? You can't. That's the real truth. And how do you know you're getting the real truth if you remote view? See, it doesn't. So what? It doesn't. You don't know how far the deception can extend. Okay, so all that doesn't really. That's not furthering the position. If somebody can astral travel and see the truth, because it could be the same lie. Okay, the crop circle phenomenon, for some reason, is almost never mentioned in our wing of YouTube. And I said the last video, it is fascinating. If you look into it just for a few hours, you see some of the images and pictures. And at this point, because there's been so many pictures, stories, documentaries, I don't think it's being faked. But it's so incredible, the patterns. I don't know why there's not more people talking about it. And I guess I won't really know unless I just go plant myself up in that part of England and just, there's a pub down the way, and just have 8 pints a day and just wait and wait and wait until a crop circle, and they're not circles, they're intricate patterns, shows up. And then I will drive my rent-a-car a mile away on my 8 Guinnesses to go see it. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on. But the point is, those that are investigating aliens or alien influence over the Earth, for example, they will often bring in the crop circle thing. And why wouldn't they? It's incredible evidence to support their positions. But that doesn't make them right. And we feel we have, if we would say, well, at least these aliens aren't traveling on spaceships through space. Space isn't even what they say it is. We feel we have just as much evidence on the other side. The ridiculous presentations from NASA and SpaceX, just basic premises about how you can't even light up a liquid-fueled rocket in a vacuum, all that stuff. Nobody goes anywhere. Okay, so we have all that evidence on our side. These alien researchers have all this evidence on their side, including crop circles, and we just end up digging into our own positions, and here we go again. So in mentioning Boot at the Gas Pump people or other channels, I'm saying these people are smart, and they're not fooled in misinterpreting their evidence. All conspiracy researchers in almost every area are fed this evidence, and I was going to say, it only becomes really apparent and obvious as to what is going on in reality itself when they're conflicting, like the flat Earth researchers dig in and the scientists at MIT dig in. But we don't really have to go that far before we notice there's something really wrong here. Because remember, just the number of conspiracies. Let's just say we had sticky pads, and every time somebody gave me a conspiracy, Hollow Earth, and I wrote it out on a sticky and I stuck it to the wall. The blue avian aliens, whoever that guy that presented that. All the Kerry Cassidy stuff, the secret space program, Catherine Austin Fitts, all the Kerry Cassidy interviews on whistleblowers in all these different areas, portals, gray alien intervention. The whole wall would be covered in sticky pads, and then Matt would have his sticky pads. The fake events, Robbie Bobby moments, mistakes on purpose, implanted on purpose, guys flying around on wires, Aquanet products to the ISS, all this stuff. The whole wall would be covered in stickies. So, I should. There's a lot more in this presentation. I should just end it right now. What more would we need to see? There's no reality that could lead paths down all these different conspiracies, and no group of people could do that. Come on. I mean, I'm going to continue. There's a lot more here, but what more do you need to see? So it's 100 areas, all related to kind of figuring out what this place is all about. The more somebody's interested in figuring out what this place is all about, see the step 2, the more conspiracy that magically pops up. Okay? Conspiracy that pops up that provides them with evidence. Because the people, I believe the reason for this is the people that are interested in that, how the reality really works. Oh no, the reality says they're only one step into understanding themselves. So I better put a lot of distractions on this particular farm because they are getting closer. The conspiracy people are closer to understanding themselves than person that just follows Ryan Seacrest on the red carpet, if you see what I mean. Maybe that's why this group gets all the conspiracy thrown at it, because they're venturing down paths the reality doesn't want, if you see what I'm saying. The fact that we can wake up almost nobody is just inexplicable to me. There's some sort of means, mechanisms, techniques, or technologies going on here that we can't understand or can't comprehend, which again, in a way, points back to the supernatural way in which it's doing business. And if it's doing business supernaturally in one way, it's probably not isolated there. It probably extends to almost everything. Therefore, you can very easily, I can talk to someone and say, do you think this could possibly be pulled off in a real world? And some people would be like, no, there's just no way. Or the Mandela effect, I don't have to convince them of anything. And it's like, but we have to figure out the exact way the Cologne Cathedral was built. Well, why do you think that has to be real, but these things over here? If these things over here aren't real, then everything might not be real. I'd say nobody built it. Okay, that's my best. And that's not a cop-out. To me, it's getting closer to how this whole reality works. It's not a cop-out. Neo, if he was in the Matrix, in that club, he could have tapped some girl on the shoulder following the White Rabbit. He could have said, hey, look around, honey. This is all, honey. He's talking to Vintage Space. This isn't real. They would have thought he's nuts. He would have been right. Okay, that's what I'm saying. That's what Gus is saying. I've told you, I've experiences in my life mostly with trying to wake people up where it's like there's two different realities, where you can say just some common sense and the person you're talking to just can't see it. And I mean, literally, they can't see it, like there's two different realities. I don't think that's what's going on. I think that's dumbed down, but it's something like that going on. Where I could say to Tony, well, if I stack up 10 bricks, which is the North Tower, and see, let's just do it for real. Stack 10 bricks up, and then I'm going to pull out the 9th brick. That's where the fake plane hit. And if I'm talking to Tony, I wouldn't say that, of course, because all that stuff gives him the excuse just to walk away and say, oh, now you're really a loon. But you pull the 9th brick out, the 10th brick falls in the 8th brick. What happens? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, shouldn't it all go down to dust? Well, Matt, a stacking of bricks is not a very good recreation of what the North Tower was all about. They just can't see it. At least what they said happened to the South Tower seemed a tiny bit believable. But for North Tower, the fictitious caricature Muhammad Atta hit like floor 90. So the top little tiny piece just dropped through everything at free fall. It's so absurd. But yeah, I tell Tony this, he can't see it. It's completely normal for that to happen. And I believed it too at the time, but I was listening. I wasn't thinking it through. If somebody, came in and threw water in my face and said, let's stack up 10 bricks. What happens when I pull the 9th out? Could the 10th crash through all 8 below at free fall speed? I think I would seemingly wake up to it. I wasn't trying to wake up to it, and nobody was trying to wake me up to it. I would have hoped I would have been more open-minded, but who knows? All right, who knows? Okay, so saying there's two completely separate realities, that doesn't really fly with anybody. I mean, I only, again, keep it on the table because this stuff, I just can't explain, how people act and how they can't see certain things. Like Pam gave her friend a 9/11 video, 2-hour video that I put together that, of course, I never put on YouTube or anything like that. And I think I mentioned this. The friend came back and said, I'm not convinced. And it's like, I assure you, there's no way you could get out the other side of that video believing that it was 19 guys with box cutters. So I question, what did they even see? What went in the DVD player? Is that what I put together? And I know it's way out stuff, guys. So the two different realities things doesn't fly. But this is like a refined philosophy. It might be closer to the truth. There might not be separate realities, but one reality that does the best it can, and it seems to mold itself to fit what an observer expects to see in supernatural fashion. And the word expects to see is more important than what it wants to see. Somehow, there's no doubt, in my opinion, somehow the reality can pull this off. So it's not like two completely separate realities. That's just so hard to... But something that, again, I give that DVD to Pam's friend and they want to see something. They desperately will never want to come around to my position. Who knows what they're shown? In the Event Horizon, they didn't all see the Burning Man, Lawrence Fishburne's crew member, burning alive. Everybody saw something different in the event horizon. Somehow this is going on. Techniques, technologies, or spellcraft we just don't understand. But it's certainly what is going on is a conversation outside our bookends of known reality. Hopefully we're ready to leave that behind. This is, in a sense, similar to the movie The Matrix with the concept of residual self-image. Remember the overacting Larry Fishburne as Morpheus? He explains the reason why Niobe and everybody is dressed a certain way, explains that to Neo. Everybody looks so cool with their glasses. He tells Neo, this is your residual self-image. No plugs. Your hair is perfect. This is your, you're generating this. But, it means each red pill in some way is shaping the Matrix themselves. Think about it. The Matrix isn't creating what Neo looks like. According to Morpheus, it's residual self-image. So in the movie, even the red pills that go back into the Matrix are shaping the Matrix, right? He wasn't at the will of the Matrix to give him his haircut. He could have ended up looking like Carrot Top, that weird-ass comedian. He had his own residual self-image, and then it could be a little bit of a truth drop that, okay, yeah, Matrix, mirror reflection reality, we residual self-image of not only what we look like, that's the Matrix, but what we expect the world to be. I talked about 2 years ago, mistakes on purpose. Robbie Bobby moments, rats running around engines, inflated tires at the bottom of North Tower. Obviously they didn't make a mistake. First grade truth development, we actually thought they made mistakes. And we talked about mistakes on purpose. But it could be more than that if we want to go far enough. It's just showing us what we expect to see. I don't know any other way to put it, because I can't show a friend of mine. I can't show Tony the inflated tire, and then he'll go, "Oh boy, that could never happen. I now believe everything you say, Matt, about 9/11." You know that'll never happen. So what's going on supernaturally here? The Tell Me What You Love channel, they expect to see, as I do, weird mistakes on the ISS, people in front of obvious blue screens, people floating around on wires, and gorilla suit cello playing absurdities. And that's what the reality serves us. It's kind of what we expect. Russian vids, he expects it to be in the name itself. He'll say, look at the name, astronaut, cosmonaut. It's not it. I mean, it's in the name. Incredible. Reality puts it in the name. Matt, it's the word "not" is in. It's always been there. It's not because Russian vids expected it. I don't know. Who knows? It's a mere reflection of reality with retrocausality elements. Who knows? Who knows? If I throw my bookends out and every weird thing I come up with, I'm not going to be right about every weird thing. I'm going to appreciate when I'm wrong as just an exercise in thinking big. Reality delivers the bullshit we expect. Even on the other side, a SpaceX fanboy, they seem just impossibly fooled. Who could be a SpaceX Elon Musk lone scum? Lone Star? That was from Spaceballs. See, that's also a 6 degrees of Elon Musk connection between Spaceballs and SpaceX. Lone scum. Who could put their belief in that clown? Yet I have family members that adore the man like he's some sort of genius, where all we see is an actor. Who has claim? All have claim. Who have claim? None have claim. That's where I am. Okay? Now, it presents, again, it's not just for the conspiracy people, the people that believe in what science is saying about what the eclipse is and all that, they're shown the evidence they need to believe those things as well. Okay, if we continue to look at SpaceX, and I would love to view this video sometime with the vintage space chick. We can show people, or we can look it up ourselves. We can see that rat running around the engine. When the thing's in space, there's a rat running, or it might be a Stuart Little mouse or something. It's in the engine when it's in space. Now, obviously, I was going to say that seems absurd to us because it is absurd. But the point is, it just seems like common sense to say, if you're able to show somebody that there was a rat running around the engine when the thing's supposedly in space, or if you could show that to a NASA fanboy or somebody with an Elon Musk poster above their bed, wouldn't that be enough to kind of prove it's all fake, wouldn't they also see the ratatouille in the engine? Would they see what you're seeing? Wouldn't they immediately come around to our viewpoint about what SpaceX is? But no, somehow, no, because it never happens. It's almost like the reality plays games to keep people apart, people that could share information. I don't know, but it is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And it's also, it's like a Mandela effect to a degree, and it's Goldilocks reality, where you and I, we'll see. This is where the two realities, or the Goldilocks reality, comes in, and the two realities. We'll see. Do we see a giant rat running around the engine of SpaceX? For those that don't know, they a couple months back or a year, whatever it was, this thing looked like it was running around the engine. But it's Goldilocks. See, to us, it's like there's no possible way that there could be anything moving around in there in that sense. And the truth community had fun with it. It was like a rat, looked like a mouse, whatever. And it kind of looked like that. Not exactly. We couldn't see a tail or anything, but it was enough where we said, what is that stupid thing? Why was it planted there? So we latch onto it. But then Goldilocks reality would say, we'd show that to our cousin who believes Elon. My cousin, he would put himself in line to get the Tesla. He waited and waited months to get the Tesla. He loves Elon Musk. He would say, Matt, anything could be moving around in that engine. You're no engineer. If something could have broken loose, he would have all the ways to explain it. And who's to say if we're even looking at the same screen at the same time? Maybe he sees something a little different than I'm seeing. And then, of course, we'll never have a meeting of the minds. This is just how this is a trick of the reality, in my opinion. No doubt about it. Let's continue to talk about that aspect because it's very important, very interesting. The reality, in some way, almost sees to it that groups with these diverse viewpoints never really communicate with each other properly, can never truly share information. Always happens. There's no way. It's artificial. There's no way this could keep happening. So Tony might allow me to talk to him about, and only a few times, and then they'll shut it down forever. But this is back in 2014 or something. He allowed me to talk to him about 9/11 a few times in person. But when I said to him, come look at the evidence on my computer, let's sit together, let's merge our reality bubbles, merge them together, then no. He had to go do his own research. See, then he found the Popular Mechanics article that says how crazy Matt is. He found all the debunking stuffs, like monsters like Mick West who just lived to debunk conspiracy people. I wonder how people like that live with themselves. Like, give me, what could be a more pathetic job in the world than to just try to do everything to debunk people that challenge the mainstream viewpoint. Like, the mainstream viewpoint is of monsters. At least we're trying to poke holes in it. We're trying to be on the side of good. I mean, what kind of a monster would put together a website like Metabunk? So to bring my favorite friend back into it, if the vintage space chick actually cared about space missions, and she doesn't. She just talks for money. She doesn't give a crap, in my opinion, about space missions, and it's not really her interest. She's just put there as a talking head to make money. She really cared, and I was able to talk to her somehow. I theorized like the reality somehow would almost see to it that we would never be able to share ideas properly. Like Tony and I just can never, he had, I've got to go and I'll research your stuff and then find the Popular Mechanics article saying how it makes perfect sense how all these buildings just fell down to free fall speed. Just what happens over and over again. No real world could pull this off. But in this example, it's assuming the vintage space chick wholeheartedly believes in space missions. And I'm sure she probably doesn't give a shit. She's probably paid per video and quickly loses the money at the mall, at the local COVID-19 store. So I think most of you would agree with what I see, that the reality somehow kind of sees to it that people stay snug is a bug in a rug. They stay dug into their own belief set. And even if they are together personally, which nobody can be together personally anymore, but in the days when people could get together personally, there still was something that would keep, my sets of beliefs to really penetrate the reality bubbles of others. So to just bring my special friend in one last time, if we were ever, for example, paired together in the hit TV show Naked and Afraid, if I was ever on Naked and Afraid and my partner was the vintage space chick, the reality would see to it. There'd be several reasons why I'd never get the chance to speak to her about these space issues or about the big haired Aquanet women on the ISS. There'd be something that would keep us from my reality bubble to impinging upon hers, assuming she's not just an NPC. So I'd be out there with the vintage space chick, and it's like, we're supposed to have all the time in the world, naked and afraid. I should have all this time to talk to her, to convince her that she's just misled. Nothing happened with Mercury, Apollo, and Gemini. And just when I was about to tell her about Jeff Bezos sending that Bradford white hot water heater up into the clouds, and I think it blew a gasket and all the hot water came spilling out. I mean, I just like showing her how fake that is. Something would happen. Something would happen on the set where I'd never be able to get across to her. A snake would come and try to bite my pecker off or something. Something would happen. We cannot communicate with people that are outside of our own bucket. No, guess what? What do you think I'm going to say? No real world could do that either. And this is where the downloads and the scripted responses come into play. Some sort of spellcraft or technology we don't understand. I think it is related to the Event Horizon reality. These are all really weird supernatural techniques the reality plays on a human being. And I still believe, and I'm glad we're immune to most of it. I really believe we are, although we are being played to produce the dark reality to reflect that back and played in other ways. But I'm not putting us at the same level of standing as the normie who believes everything the news presents. I'll give you an example. I think we call people NPCs because we just can't understand how real people could be so fooled. But I am moving away more from the NPC concept, more to like a degradation of what a human being is supposed to be, or a accepting or a lowering oneself down towards the abyss, where becoming where once Pinocchio was a real boy. It's becoming wooden. That's what's happening to the soul. And they seem like NPCs. So I always flip-flop back and forth on that. But it doesn't matter for the purpose of this presentation. The other day, I asked my mother, she's no dummy, right? My argumentative skills and everything all came from my mother, very sharp to this day in her 70s. She was the valedictorian of Owen J. Roberts High School, where she went to high school. If he was a few years behind her, I think, of Darrell Hall of John Oates. And I said to her, you don't want to hear, she was, more conspiracy. Nobody in our family wants to hear anything from us and this stuff. I said, I got to say something. And it's just it's a political question. Okay. Don't say, here comes the conspiracy again. But under what situation, here we go again, can the president tell a landlord that a tenant cannot be evicted if that tenant does not pay? I said that to my mother. How is that possible? And I just kind of paused and waited. I forget what she said, this and that, and it just kind of, she didn't want to talk about it. And I said, well, wait a second, not evicted because of skin color or anything where, of course, the landlord can't evict people for certain reasons like that, but for not paying, okay? Or for something a landlord has been able to do legally for thousands of years. Now a president pops up because some head of the executive branch wakes up one morning and says they can't do it. Now that's simply accepted as law. So I asked her, how is that possible? It's not possible, obviously, between you and me and any reality we remember. Okay, but the point is this. In my conversation with my mother, some sort of script starts to play out. I'm sure you recognize this in what happens with others around you. Some sort of script I call the download. They're just not capable of giving you a straight answer in a common sense fashion. So if I said to her, again, straight A's in college, valedictorian of her high school, reads Time magazine, reads the newspaper, of course is a normie that's fooled in all those areas, but smart nevertheless. But she couldn't just say something simple back. You never get something simple back. Like, Matthew, she calls me Matthew. Matthew, I heard about that, Biden and landlords. And I can't imagine how that's legal under the Constitution. Maybe they're going to shoot it down soon. That can never happen anymore. They can't just give you a simple acceptance. Okay, this happens all the time in conversations and emails between Ken and I, which I'll explain. Some sort of download starts to play out. And if it's something as one-sided as it is simple, because in no reality that even still exists, a president can't pop up and tell a landlord they can't evict a tenant based on the premise of their business model, something that's been going on for thousands of years. It's like a president, if a president popped up and said, you ice cream parlor sellers, you can't sell ice cream. People would be like, you can't do that. But then they pop up and say, because it's the right thing to do, landlords can't evict tenants. People think it's just completely fine. Anyway, a download of some kind starts to happen, a script. So my mother says to me, because she can't blatantly agree, and she can't blatantly disagree either, because it's so one-sided, so obvious that my position is correct. So here's what they run. The script comes out. I need to look into that. I said, what? You need to look into that? Why? You've lived in this country for 70-some years. Why would you need to look into it? You aren't aware of what presidents can do and how smart you are and all your straight A's and all the civics classes and all the Time magazine and Newsweek magazine you've read for 40-some years. You think the president can just act as a dictator whenever he wants? Why would you need to look into it? What if Biden popped up and said, Americans must chew 2 sticks of gum every Tuesday before noon or face fines? Would that be something you need to look into? Would that be legal? Would you just say, I need to look into that? Or would you immediately come back and say, no, the president can't force you to chew gum? Well, what's the difference? I need to look into it. Same script runs back. I need to look into it. Meaning, of course, I couldn't possibly be right. Because this has been on the news and Biden is actually doing this, there must be something I'm just missing. I mean, what? Okay, these scripts people run, these plug-and-play responses, I call the download. No doubt there's some sort of means or mechanism here we don't understand. But this could be tied into where I say there's like reality shifts going on. We're living inside a Mandela effect. For example, reality shifting, it's taking everybody down the river with it, and we are standing on the bank as it's getting farther and farther away. So although initially it feels like a download where my mother is saying, well, I need to look into that, which is a way out of the conversation. She might be saying, I need to look into that. This is all new to me. It's a way out of the conversation until she can get the download, until she can sync up potentially with a reality where it's completely normal, legal, and acceptable for a president to say to a landlord, you can't evict a tenant for not paying. Oh, $99,000 and below, $99,000 and above, you should have the money to pay. $99,000? What? If anything, I was like, what's the number going to be? 30,000? 99,000. Anyway, so she might be saying that's what the script that runs during a firmware update as the reality shifts. I need to look into it. You need to look into it. But then, okay, then she'll come back and, in my reality, the new reality, the one that's sailing down the river, the Insanity River on the Ship of Fools, then it's completely normal. We're rooted somewhere else, standing on the bank. Guys, I'm not going to turn this into a Mandela effect discussion, but there was a reason when this thing broke. It was artificially managed by the system itself. This whole Fiona Broome thing. Oh, where did it come from? Oh, this Fiona Broome, some woman nobody ever knew existed. Like, that's just going to spread like wildfire. It's all artificially implanted by the system itself. She came up with the term Mandela effect, and but she's never been active in the real Mandela effect community. And then complete frauds like George Norrie, those show, any national conspiracy show, of course it's going to be a fraud. Dan of Scarab Performance, somehow he called in there and with Fiona Broome or something. They didn't like what he was saying, what he was presenting the real truth about the Mandela effect. They just cut him off and hung up on him. Dan from Scarab Performance. It was all a system set up the way they presented the Mandela effect. And then they also present it as just trivial Kit Kat dashes. That's all it is. No, it's probably a side effect of the larger reality shifts that are going on. If they can trivialize it, and they have enough people believing that, Matt can certainly see a lot of things in truth, but when it comes to this Mandela effect, I don't know if I should continue to listen to what he puts out because he's just fooled. He's fooled. He's completely believing in the government Mandela effect psyop. No, I have 5 anchor effects where I assure you and would bet, I don't even want to say it that way, but you know what I mean? I'd bet blank that it was one thing and now it is another. And now we have thousands and thousands of these accounts and people I trust with my life, like Greg, saying he's seen it change on the fly right in front of him, as I have. So the government came in or the system, whatever you want to call it, they managed this in a certain way to make it, of course they're going to make it seem like a psyop, but it's not just about Kit Kat dashes. This is a side effect of when you get frustrated with your relatives for saying, yo, my relatives believe Biden can say tenants can evict somebody that doesn't pay, and they're going along with the reality. They're going along down the river of insanity on the ship of fools. That's a reality. That's shift. People shifting to a new reality. That's what it's a gigantic Mandela effect is what it is. One of the reasons we get so frustrated is what may be happening is we continuously try to apply standards of reality that no longer exist. Maybe at this point, after I introduced the concept to my mother, she reflected on it, got her firmware update. I don't know exactly how it works. Right now in her reality, and I guess in the reality we're in, presidents can just pop up and tell landlords that they can't evict people. That's completely normal in the reality that exists. So we're the ones that are outcasts in the reality that exists. So we go back to people and say, this can't be, that can't be. They look back at us like we're crazy. Okay, we have to obviously leave that on the table. That actually makes the most sense because there's no other way to explain it other than, in other words, the download concept or the firmware concept is evolving into something that affects the greater or the larger reality. Now, in one sense, you can say we're just seeing things two different ways. And down the spectrum or down the sliding scale, you could say there are two different realities. But we don't have to fully understand what's going on. We just have to kind of understand what is going on here where we are separating ourselves from the people around us, and we can almost predict the way they act. We don't really, you're never going to have an understanding of exact techniques or spellcraft or means or technology being employed. But it can apply to almost everything. We just don't see things the same way, and whatever mechanism is causing that, we're never really understand. But it certainly proves, again, for the 1,000th time, that we shouldn't be trying to wake people up because we're trying to wake people up into a reality that they conform with and you and I don't. You can apply it to anything. You and I turn on the TV and we see someone that's being grilled in front of the Senate, Supreme Court nomination hearings for Kavanaugh. But then in the morning, we see somebody or whatever that thing is brought in, some sort of an accuser that's something made up in a dress pretending to be an accuser who's probably a man or could be Kavanaugh himself. We see the bizarre, whatever that Christine or whatever was, it was about as bizarre as anything I've ever seen in my life. Who knows what it was? That's what we see. But your highly educated Ivy League Atlantic magazine subscriber sees a real accuser who's very courageous for testifying before the Senate and exposing such injustice against Kavanaugh. They don't see any bit of what we see. And could you imagine if I approached that person and said, "No, it's Kavanaugh himself"? I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I think the reality does this to us every so often. If we actually go so far as to talk to certain people about certain things, we will be stamped and labeled as completely insane forever. Maybe they really put him in a dress just so we screw ourselves. Who knows? It's fascinating nonetheless. So with Kavanaugh or this Christine or whatever, who's right? Who's wrong? All have claim. None have claim. I know it seems obvious. We have to be right? We have to be right. We have all the evidence lined up correctly, but I have to keep on the table. That somehow supernaturally both groups, all different groups, are kind of seeing what they want and expect to see. There's no other way to explain a lot of this stuff away, even if you don't like my example here, which we're having fun with. With Kavanaugh, the reality fractal seems to be recycling another run of the same play. It's a white Clarence Thomas. I must keep on the table that reality can act in a supernatural fashion, but it's limited because it seems to be running the Clarence Thomas play over again. I don't think he dressed up as Anita Hill, but maybe. I don't know, unless he lost a couple 100 pounds. I don't know. It's at some point, it's so bizarre. We just have to have fun with it. But at this point, the wake up, we're right, you're wrong. Nope, not going there anymore with what the reality has shown me over the last 10 years of my research. I should have come to this conclusion years ago. So the best way to close this out is one of my favorite examples, the old police lineup of whodunit bad guy list proves how artificial the entire reality itself is. You know, all the different things that covertly influence the world, stand in the shadows, everything the conspiracy researchers have looked into over 20 years and the conspiracy role of each of these. Come on out, the police lineup. All right, you're safely behind your one-way mirror, which for some bizarre reason is called also called a two-way mirror. Well, is it one-way or two-way? Well, here, bring them on out. And basically what we're doing is bringing out all the different areas of research of potentially, and not even just bad guys, people who are influencing. There'll be some good guys brought out in the police lineup. So who's first? Oh, here comes an Archon, whatever that is. Here comes an Anunnaki, whatever that is. Here comes some aliens. Oh, there's tons of these aliens coming out. It's like a scene in Men in Black. All these bad and evil aliens people have investigated over the years. Here comes a reptilian. That's a major presentation inside of Truth Circles. Here comes, oh boy, here comes the ground shaking. Demons are coming out, and also thought form demons that we've created ourselves called egregores. And then here come the bloodline families. They're really disgruntled because they were hauled away from cocktail parties. And then here come the Jesuits and people that are related to Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati. Members of the deep state are coming in now into a very crowded police lineup. And then people that organized the secret government projects. Here's a guy that was involved with the Philadelphia experiment and things like people covering up real history that supposedly happened, like the Battle of Los Angeles. Here are the Area 51 guys coming up. And then, oh, look, the Greys over here are starting to push and shove with the Blue Avians. And the Palladians are stepping in to help. And all of these different groups. Okay. Oh, but for still somebody knocking at the door. Secret societies that worship Baphomet. Here, we got to squeeze them in. There's almost there's no room on the stage. And the point of this is to remind people, and I'm just scratching the surface, all the different areas of research and where the reality itself has shown all these research, the legitimacy of all these different things in their role in this world. It's just not possible. And I'm just doing the bad guys. We got to bring the good guys onto the stage as well, because it's not just talking bad and good, talking about people doing research, and the reality shows them what they expect via the research. Oh, there's good aliens piling in now. Good, all sorts of good aliens are pushed. They want to get up on the stage, and they're so crowded, people being pushed off, thrown off the other side, like the Royal Rumble. And then you have all the QAnon people, everybody that Trump's coming on stage because he's going to save the day. The QAnon people behind that, and Julian Assange and all that, they're all coming on stage saying, we're exposing the corruption, we're helping you. So these are all areas people look into. The only thing not on the stage is Autobots and Decepticons. They've already been used in a movie, so the reality can't bring them into the mix. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. If I was standing behind the one-way glass saying, wait a second, there's that many potential credible culprits in this reality, I would have to say, sir, that I might be mistaken. I mean, the negative reality might be a reflection of myself. I have to re-examine this. I have no idea there were this many culprits, and I've been taught to point at all of them. I can't even point at one of them. So it just doesn't add up. No normal world could bring out such a crowded police lineup where people pushing each other and shoving each other off the stage like the Royal Rumble to throw people out of the ring to win. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Time to withdraw from this bullshit. WOI. Worry about yourself. Guys, thanks for listening. As you know, I almost never talk about donations or anything like that, but with Bootsy and Cooper at $1,700 in the last 2 weeks or so, for those that haven't contributed to the channel, if you consider $3 a month or $5 a month at quantumofconscience.com, or the future of where I'm going to make my presentations is Free Voice. It's Rob's platform, of course, but I will have a percentage of that revenue. We haven't asked anybody for any money yet at Free Voice. Eventually, all the features at Free Voice will be $5 a month. That's what Rob is telling me. Again, it's Rob's platform, but I will always share in the revenue on what Rob builds. You could do that. I got slammed this week with Bootsy and Cooper, and this is how I pay the bills. So if this was helping a little bit and getting you a little bit closer to understanding how the strange world works, please consider that. Thanks very much.